Meeting of the Oceanside City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Sanchez.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Keim.
Here.
Councilmember Jensen. Here. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Alive and well.
And Councilmember Weiss.
Here.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and go into the invocation. Please stand. We have with us by Zoom Dr. Kadri Webb, pastor at St. John's. Good evening, Dr. Webb. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good evening, everyone. If you would, bow your heads for a word of prayer with me. Father, in the name of Jesus, we gather tonight, the hallowed seat of this local government, and virtually to conduct the business of this city. As we open this council meeting tonight, we pause to pray and to center and settle our spirits. We come to you during a time where our local community is wrought with uncertainty, and so much of our citizenry faces challenge. Tonight, Father, I pray for conviction for this council that has the ability to help alleviate much of it. We call each of them by name: Mayor Sanchez, Deputy Mayor Keim, Councilmember Weiss, Councilmember Rodriguez, Councilmember Jensen. Lord, as votes are cast to close pools in disenfranchised areas, show the council the faces of the citizens. As votes are cast to develop and neglect affordable housing and homelessness, show the council their faces. Empower us to see beyond the purchase of privilege. I pray for each official. I pray for the convicting power of the Holy Ghost to rest upon them and give them the courage to turn that conviction into change. We hear your word in Amos chapter 5:21 and beyond. You don't want our offerings. Instead, you have commanded us to let justice roll down like waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. I pray for the citizens of this city. Father, you have always been on the side of the oppressed. And if we are to embody you, then we must be as well. Remind all of us that you said, whatever we do for the least of these, we do also for you. And above all, we rest in this assurance: you are on our side, even when our elected officials are not. And you can take care of them far better than we can. So let your power overshadow them as you protect us. Keep the citizens and everyone in this city in your care. In the name of Jesus the Christ, the one who was, is, and is to come, the name at which every knee shall bow, that name that has power, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Webb. Please remain standing. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I understand we don't have a business member spotlight this evening. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I understand we don't have the member spotlight, the chamber business spotlight.
It is to my understanding that we do not have one
Okay.
tonight.
Thank you. But we will next time. Okay, closed session report. Mr. Mullen?
Thank you. The City Council met in closed session to discuss item 1, labor negotiations involving the management employees of the City of Oceanside and the Oceanside Fire Association. Council met and gave direction on both groups. There's no action to report under the Brown Act. Item 2, council met with in terms of a significant exposure to litigation in the matter of one case, Daniel J. Schlosser. There is no action under the Brown Act to report on item 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Okay, next is our consent calendar. That's item number 3, and that includes items number 4 through 21. I understand one item has been pulled. Which one was that?
Item number 12 has been pulled from the agenda by staff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Do we have a motion? Okay, we have a motion by Deputy Mayor do we have a second? Okay, let's vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we have our one general item, And how many people do we have on public comment on this, Mr. Navarro?
On off agenda,
On general item number 22?
on number 22, we currently have 11 speakers.
11. Okay, so each one will be allotted the full 3 minutes. Okay, so we are on item number 22. That is adoption of a resolution approving the submission of an application for round 4 of the State of California Proposition 68 grant funds for the development of El Corazon Park Site 1 and authorization for the city manager to execute all related grant documents. And we have report by Mark Olson, Parks and Recreation Division Manager. Good evening, Mr. Olson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good to be with you, council members. My name is Mark Olson, Parks and Recreation Division Manager. I have a report before you this evening for adoption of a resolution approving the application of Proposition 68 funds from the state of California. We will have a presentation by our consultant. I believe he is on. Excellent. So the synopsis is, staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the submission of an application for round 4 of the State of California Proposition 68 grant funds for the development of El Corazon Park Site 1 and authorize the city manager to execute all related grant documents. Now, a little background. This bond act was passed in 2018 with a very sizable majority of voters in California. There have been several rounds of this. This is the most recent, round 4. It was released in the past year by the Office of Grants and Local Services. The intention of this grant is to provide parks and recreational features and opportunities to underserved communities, both in park deficient areas as well as socioeconomic disadvantaged areas. Now, El Corazon Park Site 1 sits within an area determined by California Department of Parks and Recreation to be disadvantaged, and therefore it is eligible for this funding. Parks and Recreation retained global urban strategies to facilitate public outreach and the application submittal. There was quite a bit of public outreach done with this proposal. Most recently, it was presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission last week. There were several suggestions by the commissioners, especially with respect to what is being presented, what was presented to them outside of that scope. And with all the different requests from the community, there is still quite a bit of opportunity to develop things that are consistent with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which was adopted a little more than a year ago, such as studies for pickleball courts, studies for pump tracks, studies for other recreational amenities. Those will not cease with the application of to this grant. Those studies will continue to bring those recreational features potentially to the city of Oceanside. And with that, we will move to the presentation by Omar Hernandez of Global Urban Strategies.
Thank you. Omar, are you there?
Yes, I've just been allowed to unmute myself. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Omar Hernandez with Global Urban Strategies. I'd like to share my screen if I could, so I can give you the presentation. As Mark stated, this application is for Prop 68 statewide parks program, round 4. So what we're going to discuss today is give you a little bit of overview of Prop 68. I'm going to speak about the El Corazon site, the public meetings that we've held, give you the results of the survey that were really, really well. We had a lot of feedback from the community. We had the final design. We have a preliminary budget, and then hope after that, going to give you the next steps, and hopefully you can approve the submission of this application. So Prop 68, as Mark stated, was passed in June 2018. About $650 million was distributed off of that. $2.9 billion was requested last round, and only $368 million was awarded. So there's a high demand. This round, they're going to be doing about $395 million, about almost $400 million, 80% of which is going to go towards new park, which puts the city of Oceanside in a very, very good position. So the maximum amount that we're going to be going after is the $8.5 million, which is allowed by the grant. The site location was chosen because there is 0 acres per 1,000 residents based on the Community Fact Finder, which is a program that is designed by the state in order to go and figure out those numbers. So the location of the El Corazon site, and this is just, I'm sure most of you already know, but this is in the heart of Oceanside, and it consists of 465 acres. We are only going to be discussing this section here, which is approximately 17 acres, the corner section here. So everything above the yellow line is what we're going to be discussing and what we're going to be submitting an application for. As you can see on the meetings that we've held to this day, I think we've held 5. First one was held on January 21st. We had about 50 people. We had a breakout room, and then we discussed surveys and then what type of amenities they wanted for the program. Second meeting was held on January 23rd. We had 50 attendants as well, breakout rooms. And then we asked everyone to go and place where they would like to see within that park space, where they would like to see the amenities. And we had little icons for them to do that. Third meeting, we came back. We had actual digital layouts of the site plan of what they had given us. And we were able to go and do that. A lot of adjustments were made. And these meetings were held at different times, different days, in order to go and facilitate more participation from the community. So the last meeting that we have held, we had a meeting on January 27th. We had 50 people. We didn't have any breakout room, but we started presenting the findings of both the survey and the digital layout. So we started discussing things to change, the overall look of the site or the final site plan. And then we got a lot of feedback from the community, incorporated that feedback once again into what you'll see today. The next meeting we had was with Parks and Rec Commission, and the Parks and Rec Commission was held on February 17th. We had 58 attendees that were there. Once again, we presented the findings. We discussed a lot of the questions that the Parks and Rec Commission had. We showed them the digital layout, and we made adjustments based on what they told us. So now, just to give you a little, just some information about the survey, we had 1,725 people go and really participate in this survey, which is really, really good. It's going to help us out a lot when we start really writing and looking at the overall participation from the community. This looks really, really good. As you can see, a lot of the things that they wanted, the walking, running paths, bike paths, natural play spaces, picnic areas, playground for kids, adventure playgrounds, permanent farmers market, basketball courts, a dog park, all those things scored really, really high. So we're going to go and take that, and you'll see what we've designed based on this. The other thing that we needed to go and see what other major amenities the community wanted. We had 701 people respond to this survey. And as you can see, restrooms were a big, big thing. Lighting, of course, for security purposes is really important. Trash and so forth, shading, tree canopies. These were a lot of things that we would all, would incorporate, but it really looks really, really good when we put this application together and we can go and say, look, we not only know from a park planning perspective, this is really good, but this is also what the community wanted. And this is the final design layout that came about after the 5 meetings that we had in the Parks and Rec Commission. So one of the major things that we can tell you is that there's 2 restroom areas, and they're marked as one. One is here in this area right here, and the other one is towards the basketball courts. We have that natural adventure play area, which was really important. We put that in there. When we initially started, it was in a completely different space, a lot smaller, and the community said, you know what, no, we want this to be bigger. We want to make sure that, you know, our kids are able to go and really experience this. So as we move further down, we have an amphitheater here, not a regular amphitheater made of concrete, but they wanted more of a place where they can go and really bring in their lawn chairs and really go and sit in grass and really take on whatever activity is going to be taking place there. We also have a pump park that is over on the corner, number 5. And that was, once again, a lot smaller. And we've actually doubled based on the community's input. Oh, sorry, Jesus. Based on the community's input, we were able to go and make this a lot bigger. We also have a 1 bike repair station that we've placed close to that. We've put tree canopies all over. We have one multi-purpose field, 7 basketball courts, 4 pickleball courts, and an area for a small dog and a large dog. So as you can see, this was really on summer. The 13 are also exercise stations that go all the way around the walking and bike trail, so that when people are walking, they can go and stop and exercise or stretch or do some type of calisthenics when they're there. We also looked at a preliminary budget of what we can expect to spend money on this project. And we looked at the grading and all the costs that were associated. One of the important things that we had to go and look at is to ensure that the amenities did not exceed the recreational features, because that was one of the key points that we needed to go and ensure that when we go and submit this application, that there is a big one doesn't exceed the other. So we're going after the full 8.5 million. So the next steps would be that the city council, hopefully with changes or not, we go and you approve the resolution to submit the application. The application would be completed by us by no later than March 3rd. We will give that to the city for them to review, and then the city will go turn around and we have to submit to the state on March 12th. About late summer, early fall, they'll do a site inspection. Well, they'll come in and they'll look at the site and look to see if the feasibility, and they'll look at the surrounding area, see if this is something they want to go and fund. And then the announcements will come late winter, early spring of next year. I now open myself up for questions. And with that said, I'd like to thank the city of Oceanside, Madam Mayor, members of the council, staff members. I really want to thank Mark and Megan. They have been really, really helpful throughout this whole process. The Friends of El Corazon and everyone who participated with us. It was really, really important for us to go and make this happen. We could not have done any of this without the city's input and the community's input. So, we take our hats off to the community members, because they really did step up and help us out here.
Thank you. Is that it, Mr. Olson?
Just to wrap up, just
Okay.
again, our recommendation is staff recommends the city council adopt a resolution approving the submission of an application for round 4 of the State of California Proposition 68 grant funds for the development of El Corazon Park Site 1 and authorize the city manager to execute all related grant documents. I know there's some comments and will be available for questions as well as Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Okay, I understand we have 11 people. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have
Mr.
11
Cavato?
speakers.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Each one will be able to speak for up to 3 minutes.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Our first speaker is Sherry Mackin, to be followed by Diane Nygaard, to be followed by Wayne Godine. And we'll get Ms. Mackin. There you are. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Mackin.
Thank you, Ed. Honorable Mayor and council members, I support staff's recommendation to move forward with the application and adopt the resolution. I urge you to request another multi-purpose playing field to be included in the design, as the community has asked and has been promised sports fields for well over 20 years. During their last meeting, Parks and Rec commissioners asked if a field could be added due to the continued request by the community. This is the time to make good on those promises to our sports leagues. Please add another field. And food for thought, since the intent of State 68 is to create new parks and new recreation opportunities in critically underserved communities across California, I would hope to see an application from the city during the next round of State 68 or sooner for the surplus property known as Pacifica Elementary School, owned by Oceanside Unified. I realize that the city has already been offered this property, and I can't for the life of me figure out why you did not have the foresight to secure all or some of the property for a desperately needed neighborhood park on that site. As far as I know, the property is still for sale. Please don't let the neighborhood be consumed by a high-density housing project without leaving any open space for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Diane Nygaard.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. We're thrilled that the city is considering applying for this grant for what will be the first park on El Corazon. But we need to make sure that once we get the grant and build the park, we actually have the money to operate and maintain it. El Corazon is unique amongst all of our city parks in that when we adopted the master plan, there was also a revenue plan to provide the funds to maintain and operate that park. It was a balanced plan with everybody paying their fair share, so there would not be a burden on the taxpayers of Oceanside. We need to implement that revenue plan for El Corazon. And one of those key items is park impact fees. Our Oceanside impact fees have not been updated for 25 years. We are woefully behind, and they do not include our park at El Corazon. So we certainly ask you to approve this grant and direct staff to move forward with our park impact fees and to update the revenue plan for El Corazon. So let's make sure that when we build this wonderful new park that we can actually open it and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Wayne Godine, to be followed by Wilson Godine, to be followed by Lisa Russell.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Just a quick comment. I'm reading from November 20th, 2019 on the staff report to City Council. The city existing master plan of Parks and Recreation has not been updated since 1996, with a prior update occurring in 1987 after the original adoption in 1974. The community facilities element was adopted in 1990 and has never been updated. The community facilities element currently references the 1987 master plan of Parks and Recreation to provide a guide for the orderly development of future park recreation, open space facilities to meet the current and projected need for the recreational facilities, an inventory of recommended improvements and an implementation program to provide needed facilities. The community outreach process took place, for the master plan in February of 2018, of which Save Our Streets and the Samoan Culture Committee were part of in that master plan. The community outreach process took place from February 2018 to June 2018, inclusive of stakeholders meetings, 3 workshops of which we participated in all of them. Several city disciplines were to be responsible for implementing the goals and objectives, including Parks and Rec Division and Public Works Department. Additionally, the city will be working with community partners in an effort to include the Oceanside and Vista School District, SoCal, Friends of El Corazon, Save Our Streets, and other stakeholder user groups. So we were in a master plan and didn't know anything about this grant when it was first announced. Not even our official city liaison and city staff worker, Jesse Martinez, Balarama Park, and Melba Bishop. So we didn't know about it. We heard about it after the meetings had already started, and by the time we joined in Zoom, the conversation was already going on, and then we heard about a survey. By the time we got surveys on January 29th, it was a Friday evening, thanks to Diane Nygaard and other people that were helping on our end. We got them out on Saturday. Sunday's a day of rest in our culture and community, so by Monday, they extended it February 1st and 2nd for an extra day or two. And then you had city council on February 3rd. So to try to get an extra field in there was 2 fields when we first joined in on the Zoom. And we felt like Johnny-come-latelys to this conversation, which was unheard of. Why weren't we contacted? Paul Pow, Save Our Streets. Pastor Sheldon Brown, Save Our Streets. Or myself. We were all in the workshops representing John Landis, Tri-City, Deep Valley, Libby Lake, Mesa, Balarama Eastside, and Crown Heights neighborhoods. And so was this an exclusive situation up at El Corazon? You know, you call it El Corazon, the heart. The heart, that's an Hispanic term. Coming out, we're in the East Side, we're in Crown Heights, we're in the Valley. So it's really suspect to us when people look at this and trying to get people involved to comment, get involved with the program like this, where they don't have trust, and that's the problem. Trust is fleeting, and we announced so much and so many times before that we trust Jesse Martinez, Patrick Young. They didn't even know about it, and their city co-workers and staff people. Please, please try a little harder next time to include us in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Wilson Godine, to be followed by Lisa Russell, to be followed by Dave Cobb. Wilson, are you on the same call?
Yes.
Okay, whenever you're ready, sir.
Yeah. Hi.
Can you adjust the screen, Wilson, so that we can see you?
Oh, wasn't really wanting
There
to
we
be
go.
seen.
We can see you now.
Okay. Okay. Hi, my name is Wilson Godine. My family's been in Oceanside for 55 years. We've done a lot of community work, usually behind the scenes, but this has kind of brought me out a little bit. I normally don't do public speaking, but I felt pretty emotional about this situation with what's going on with the park and also on the Brook Street pool. As far as the park thing, I did fill out the survey. It was kind of a short notice, and I also felt that there were a lot of people that I've come in contact with playing pickleball over the last year and a half, and a lot of people didn't know anything about that there was even 4 pickleball courts. We usually go outside of Oceanside. We go to Vista, to San Marcos, and sometimes to Carlsbad to play pickleball. And it's the fastest growing sport in the country. And 4 courts are just, it's not even close. So I'm advocating for 12 pickleball courts, looking long term towards future tournaments where we can actually become like trying to figure out what the word I'm trying to say, but kind of like a center place to have pickleball tournaments so we can generate revenue for our city. So, plus also keeping a lot of us that play pickleball home in Oceanside. So that's about all I really wanted to say as far as this topic, but also to add a multi-purpose field, which we have a lot of football, rugby. We have a lot of soccer fields, but a lot of the soccer fields we don't have access to. I'm not sure what happened with the fields that we have up there in El Corazon, but we heard a lot about it, but nobody can really access the fields. We can't even go like we used to go to Oceanside and El Camino just to play on the football fields anymore, because it's just, everything seems to be so unaccessible. Is that a word? Yeah. Anyways, so that's about all I wanted to say on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Lisa Russell, to be followed by Dave Cobb, to be followed by Andrew Tepuloa.
Good evening. Lisa Russell here. Can you hear me?
Ken.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm Lisa Russell, a proud member of Oceanside, born and raised here, 1960. And I'm here to advocate for more pickleball. We have 8 courts at Melba Bishop, very nice courts. We're looking for at least that at El Corazon, please, maybe 12. I want to reiterate what Wilson Godine said about having tournaments and maybe bringing in revenue to the city. That would mean people traveling and maybe staying at hotels and eating at our fine restaurants here we have in Oceanside. I've played in a tournament up in Irvine where I've traveled. That's the only tournament I played in for pickleball. And it was nicely put on with 12 courts. I'd like to say we have a couple homegrown people in Oceanside, Alex Flory Hamner and Jennifer LaCour. Jennifer LaCour is a pickleball Hall of Famer. They are up and coming and very good with the sport. They are also doing some open classes for people who are just learning pickleball. Pickleball is the fastest sport that we know of, that I know of. In 2020, the Sports and Fitness Industry Association said pickleball participation grew 21.3%. This sport is easy to learn. It's good for young and old, male and female. I've played with young as 8 years old and old as 92. And let me tell you, those 92, they can run circles over me. I'm 60 and I'm hoping to play when I'm still 90. And I'm hoping to play here in Oceanside. Just yesterday, I played at Innovation Park in San Marcos. I play in Carlsbad. I play in Vista. And I want to play in Oceanside. I'm a member of Melba Bishop. And I chose that because I didn't want to pay a drop-in fee. So I want Oceanside. I support Oceanside with our population of 175 plus people. I think that there should be more than our 8 courts at Melba Bishop. So I'm hoping for 12. Let's see, you know, the fresh air is good, vitamin D and exercise. Those are points that I just wanted to point out. Again, I'm born and raised here in Oceanside, so please help me out so I don't have to go to these other cities for pickleball. And it's a new sport for me. I've only been in it a little over 1 year.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Your time's out.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Dave Cobb, to be followed by Andrew Tepuloa, to be followed by Jamie Olson. Dave, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for letting me speak on this topic. I'm with Thunder Rugby. We're a non-profit 501c3 for youth, and specifically one of the coaches of our girls rugby team. And like several of the other speakers today, I believe the park and the residents of Oceanside would benefit from 2 multi-purpose athletic fields, not 1. A significant number of our team come from Oceanside's Polynesian community, and they, like a lot of our team, don't play soccer or track or similar sports. They do play rugby though. They like rugby and they benefit from all the physical, mental and emotional benefits from sports. now with everything going on. We're also starting to see a number of our girls getting scholarships and going into college via rugby, getting the chance to play overseas. We currently struggle for anywhere to play in Oceanside. An extra sports field will give so much more opportunity for them to play. As I can't remember the name said at the start, this part has been backed by a fund designed to help under-resourced and underprivileged communities. Getting a second sports field will match the spirit of that goal and help kids play sports. So, thanks again.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Andrew Tepaloa. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Jamie Olson, to be followed by Anthony Flores. Andrew, whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Andrew Tepaloa, representing Oceanside Pop Warner today. Sorry, I'm still in traffic, but I was trying to get on here and just say a few things about the grant, the field. It's just, we have a lot of youth sports out here, but there's no field to play at. I mean, we're always battling over parks and trying to just get a place in our own city for rec. And it's it kind of wedges and and everything that we're trying to do out here. And it was, we're just out here trying to get for the youth to get them situated for the future as well. I mean, we have 2 high schools that brought CIFs to the city, and we can't even participate there at their fields. I mean, we're grooming these kids, and then these are the high schools that these cities these youths are gonna go to after our programs. With the Warriors, rugby, anything that goes on here, so thank you for the time. I'm sorry, I'm still driving, though. I'm gonna get off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comments from Jamie Olson, to be followed by Anthony Flores, to be followed by Lauren Godine. Jamie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, Mayor, City Council members, thank you so much for letting us talk tonight in this meeting. The points I want to make, a lot of them have been made. I think one of the things about pickleball being so unique is it's a very inclusive sport. All ages, races, old, young, everyone's included, and they all get along. Beginners play with people who are very good. It's a very welcoming sport for the city. It's a great outdoor sport. We're outdoors getting vitamin D and getting fresh air, which we all need these days. We definitely need 12 courts because we would like to be able to sponsor and host tournaments to bring people into Oceanside, as has been said, to our city, and to make a revenue for the city. I think that's very important, and that's a big reason we need 12 courts to put on a decent tournament for people to travel and have Oceanside their destination. I think another thing with pickleball is it's very good for people as you get older and you're not as mobile as you used to be. I played competitive tennis for 36 years at the Oceanside Women's Tennis Club and had knee surgery, and I can't get about as well as I used to, and pickleball is dynamite for that. So it appeals to a lot more people. I think opening up 12 courts at El Corazon would really behoove Oceanside, and I hope you consider adding more courts. Thanks so much for your time. Come out and try pickleball, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comments from Anthony Flores. Mr. Flores, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm speaking in support of agenda item 22 on the condition that a second sports field is included with the plan. For whatever reason, field access for sports other than soccer has always been an issue with the city of Oceanside. My children play rugby, and we've had to travel to the cities of Vista, Carlsbad, even as far as the niggas just to practice and let alone play. They can't even play in their backyard because the fields that we do have are unavailable. The 2 fields only help our youth programs who often feed into each other. I know the member from Pop Warner just spoke. A lot of the football kids, they finish their season, they come in and play rugby, and vice versa. Rugby's done, they go back into football, which has been a great feeder for the youth and to keep them up, which we're trying to do. We said earlier in the presentation that the grant is for disadvantaged, populations, socioeconomic populations. So that would just benefit the youth. In closing, the location of El Corazon being in the middle of the center Oceanside will provide the youth the opportunity to play in these programs and stay off the streets. Like we said, everyone has said that El Corazon is the heart. And if you look at the map, El Corazon is right in the middle of Oceanside and will allow everyone to come together to participate in these programs, whether it's rugby, football, or even pickleball, which I totally support the 12 fields. My family has gotten into it and it's, again, become very popular and they love it. What I would like to see, though, is that someone had mentioned earlier the population 176,000 folks for those in Oceanside. And we only received 1,000 surveys, and they were last-minute surveys. I would love, for those surveys to go back out, to see some more outreach actually going to the neighborhoods. To piggyback off what Wayne Godine said, to go into the neighborhoods of Eastside, Town Site, Melba Bishop Valley, John Landis, all those neighborhoods actually go and get some real feedback, and touch base with the grassroots and actually provide and get some feedback and provide some real results and real plans for this park. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comments from Lauren Godine, and our last speaker would be Gordon Chavez. And we're getting Lauren on. Lauren, whenever you're ready.
Okay, hello, thank you. Yeah, I spoke last time and I just wanted to speak again today because I know it was going to be a different audience. But yeah, born and raised in Oceanside, my family, my uncle Wayne Godine has been very involved in this city. And it looks like the surveys work a little bit last minute. And I only knew about this whole thing because of him and my family. And then I was able to spread the word amongst the community that I'm a part of, which is a lot of pickleballers and other athletes. I'm very involved in the athletics in the city. And a lot of people had no idea about any of this, the grant or anything. So, but that's why I just tried to spread the word so that hopefully you guys can get the picture that, that you guys as the leaders can get the picture that of how popular and growing pickleball is, and that how it would just be a win-win for everybody because it's the fastest growing sport in the US and people are having to go to other cities, Poinsettia and Carlsbad, Pringle Terrace and Vista, the parks in San Marcos, having to go there to play rather than being in Oceanside. And tournaments is a huge thing. People pay quite a bit of money to play in tournaments. And so people were traveling here to play. And then like Lisa Russell said, like eating at the restaurants, staying in hotels, it would just be great for the city in tons of different ways. I would just say with great confidence that nobody in leadership would regret building more pickleball courts 10 years from now, 5 years from now. No one would be like, wow, we shouldn't have built that many courts. It was a waste. It would definitely not be a waste. And I also want to advocate for 2 multi-purpose fields as well, because that would be really beneficial to the city as well to have 2 multi-purpose fields as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final public comments from Gordon Chavez. Gordon, whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Mayor and City Council, I appreciate this opportunity to be able to speak here. My name is Gordon Chavez. I grew up in Oceanside from 80 to about 85. I lived on Center Street in the Crown Heights neighborhood. And then after that, moved to Gold Drive in the Deep Valley neighborhood. And my wife and I are currently raising 4 boys here in Oceanside. I love this city. I love the people of Oceanside. And I think that we definitely need to invest more in our city. So I think it's great that you guys are going after this grant. However, I think that the communication process for sending these surveys out could have been a little bit better. Touching on what another gentleman said, there's about 175,000 people in Oceanside, and we only got about 1,000 surveys, it sounds like. If you look at just the zip code of 92056, there's, I want to say, between 50 and 60,000 people living in that zip code. And still, 1,000, I think it was 1,000 surveys on one and maybe 700 on another. It just doesn't seem like it was a high percentage of the population to me, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. As far as the park goes, I think that another multi-purpose field would be great. I think that we need to get our youth involved and the whole community in general, to get them more involved, to come out and exercise together and do, participate in productive activities together. I think that would be great. But back on the communication, I don't know if there's a process for being involved in these surveys to make sure that you are involved. I share my email live here, GordonChavez009@gmail.com. Please send me information, the steps that it takes. I am a concerned resident of Oceanside. I want my boys to have a place to hang out and play so that they don't have to worry about getting in trouble doing other things. In the neighborhoods that I grew up in, they weren't necessarily the greatest neighborhoods during those times in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, communication, I think, needs to be improved. So I'd like more information on that if possible. That's all I have to say today.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And Ms. Larson, did you get his email address?
Mayor, hopefully staff caught that, or the city
Mr. Olson, did you get that?
We also have his contact information as well.
No, he asked that he be connected, gave his email address. Did you need that again?
Yes, please. if that could
Mr.
be
Chavez, can you
provided.
give your information again, please? Is he on?
He may have muted himself, or we're working on that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, it's Gordon, Gordon, Chavez, Chavez 009 @gmail.com.
Is that Gordon Chavez, all one word?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez.
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome. I
Chavez.
appreciate it. I look forward to seeing the email.
Mr. Olson, please make sure that he's on that distribution list. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Mayor.
And he was the last person?
That is correct. He's our last public speaker. And I just also want to remind those on the Zoom and those watching on KOCT that to register to speak at the city council meeting, they need to email the city clerk's office before 4:00 p.m. We really can't accept people holding up signs, raising their hands in the Zoom call. There is a process, and we're still we're following it.
Thank you. And Mr. Olson, based on all the comments from the public, would you like to make some additional comments?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, there were several comments on the outreach. Just wanted to kind of provide you some information as to what we did. In addition to posting it on the city's website, using the city's multiple social media platforms and boosting it to get a deeper penetration into the residents of Oceanside. We also coordinated with our resource centers and had them send it out to their contact lists at the different resource centers throughout the city of Oceanside, as well as send an email blast out to anyone that has ever registered for a park and recreation activity or event, which had an email distribution list of over 12,000 individuals. So we did do multiple efforts on multiple fronts to try and get that out to as many possible individuals throughout the process. And I think Mr. Hernandez will kind of touch base upon the penetration and the response and what that is compared to some of the other grants that he's received.
Right, but did any of the people who participated in the Zoom meeting, did any of them take advantage of an interpreter in whatever language that we had, like Spanish, Tagalog, whatever?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, we did have Spanish interpretation on each of the Zoom meetings that was broadcast out to the
Yeah, I know
community.
you did, but did anybody actually say they needed one?
We provided that. That wasn't in response. That was us forward thinking to make sure that
Right, my
translation
point is
services-
that no one, the information did not get out into the Spanish language population of the city of Oceanside, neither any of the other languages. So that was the concern, I think, that was being voiced about it not getting out. A lot of people didn't get this information.
Honorable Mayor, the publication and the flyers did go out in bilingual publications.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, you still on the line?
Yes, he is. We're unmuting him right now.
Okay.
We just had him.
Madam Mayor, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I did have some questions before we start discussing this at the dais. I did attend the Parks and Rec meeting, which was considered one of the hearings, right? Correct? There were about 30 people who spoke, who had various concerns and input about the final map, the final decision on what elements to put in the, in the park for Site 1, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in response to questions like, well, how come it went from 2 multipurpose fields down to only 1? What happened to the number of pickleballs? Why were all these changes made before the final map? Your response was that it could be changed. Is that right?
Even right now, ma'am, if you really wanted, if the council so wishes to go and make changes right now, we still have time to make changes. We'd have to go and look at the budgetary concerns as well, because once you start moving things around, then we'd have to go and look at that to make sure that we go and we hit that 8.5 million there. But you can make as many changes as you want, ma'am. After all, this is your community. We want to make sure that you get exactly what you want. The changes that were made were based on feedback that we got from the community. So we went from from 2 fields to 1 field because there was a lot of residents who stated that they wanted a lot of open space. They wanted other areas bigger. So you can't accommodate everything within the space that we're talking about. You can't have big open field, big open space. If you're going to have 2 fields in there, it didn't. The size wasn't just not big enough, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm referring to the comments that you made that if we were to even approve it as is, we can actually change it later. If we were to get the grant, it could actually be changed later by communicating with the department. Is that correct?
So as long as the overall changes aren't too extreme, I don't think that the Department of Parks and Rec at the state level is going to have an issue. I think one of their major concerns is to ensure that park, that acreage is in perpetuity a park. So I think that's one of their major concerns.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have a question for Mr. Hernandez before he zooms out? Questions okay. So we'll go ahead and go with Councilmember Rodriguez.
Omar, how you doing, Marine?
Doing well, sir.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for working with staff. And again, I really appreciate staff's hard work on this. And I was actually pretty impressed with the amount of responses we had from the community. And I agree that we're dealing with two items right now. Number one, we're applying for a grant, free money from the state to help facilitate funds that we don't have as a city to accommodate a park on El Corazon with limited space and a lot of ideas. But what I also think this shows is there's a large need for more facilities in our city. Our community, they want more pickleball courts. They want more playing fields. I know myself and Deputy Mayor Feller, last year we brought up an item to add more fields, and You know, there was a lot of opinions and expenses around that. And so I think outside of tonight, outside of this grant, I think it's very important that this body work with the city manager's office on really bringing additional facilities to our existing infrastructure to meet those demands and those demands of our community. But with respect to this item tonight, I just think we're limited on space and we can't pile everything that we need that's been building up over the years. That needs to happen from a policy perspective, you know, council members coming up and bringing ideas, and also the CIP budget we have coming up, we can potentially look at you know, adding some additional infrastructure on existing parks to meet those high demands. My question to Omar is, and I think Mr. Mullen's going to have to also weigh in. El Corazon is not the whole. A lot of the feedback I get from constituents with this area is they want us to deed this entire area to be designated parkland. What I understand is we own it, but there's limited areas that are actually designated parkland, which, can you explain the difference on that and how, moving forward on this, would the title of this parcel be changed as a part of accepting these grant funds?
So I think the question has to do with the specific plan, and then what would happen if we were to get these funds for the park?
I think his question is, how do we ensure that the park remains a park in perpetuity? It's already owned by the city in fee title, so we already own the park. You typically wouldn't put a deed restriction against your own property. You could do a restrictive covenant. I think part of the issue is that our city code already has protections built in, so land under section 2.81 of our city code that's used for recreational purposes could not be sold or used for a non-recreational purpose without a vote of the people, a majority vote of the people. So there already is a protection that's built into our city code. But on top of that, areas that are designated and used for recreational purposes, we could and probably will establish restrictive covenants as those are brought online to ensure that.
So by definition, our city code says, hey, if we build a park here, then it's parkland. It's designated parkland. And
Well, it can't be used for an alternative use, nor could it be sold without a majority vote of the public.
perfect. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Just to add to that, Councilman Rodriguez, when we go and get this money for the city of Oceanside, one of the things that the state requires is that this land remains a park in perpetuity. So, you know, even if the voters were to go and wanted to change it for some reason, the state, the only way to go about and make this something else is that it would take the legislature to go ahead and release those covenants.
Very, very good. From the feedback, I was at the Parks and Rec meeting. I also participated in one of the community meetings early on. I mean, there's a huge need for pickleball. Can we switch out all the basketball courts for pickleball and just do a budgetary switch? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? So adding pretty much, it would add 4 more pickleball courts and we would eliminate the 4 basketball courts.
It's really your choice, council member. Whatever the council and whatever your wishes are. I mean, we can go and make those changes. We can go and do the budgetary changes as well. I think one of the things that we wanted to go and make sure is that we become very inclusive of everyone and their recreational needs. So that's the only reason, but we can go, and if you wanted to go and take out all the basketball courts and put all pickleballs, we can do that. And or you want to just take out 2 and do additional row of pickleball courts, we can do that as well. It's really your call, sir.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers. You know, you can get 4 more pickleball courts with the cost of the 4 basketball courts, and it's kind of a lot in that area. The recreational field, the basketball, and then the pickleball. I want to hear what my colleagues have to say, but if that's not a major change, what I'm not looking to do is rework everything we got from public feedback, but that is a consistent theme, and I think it would be an easy change, and it would help mitigate some of those. But if you tell me right now that, hey, we could change those basketball courts to pickleball after we get the award, and there's not going to be any issues, then we're good to go. But, you know, is that our capability? Can we or would
think-
you rather submit it with what we're going to do, as close to what we're going to do?
I think it would be in our best interest to go and submit an application that is similar to what we want in there.
Exactly.
I think it'll be a lot more paperwork afterwards that you're going to have to submit and make the changes to the application and so forth. So I would suggest that if you want additional pickleball courts, that we go and submit something that states that.
All right, then that would be my only suggestion, contingent upon what my colleagues have to say.
Right, and I do think that pickleball, there was a point made that we need to be able to do it so that there are tournaments. And if that means we need to have 12 courts for that, then that's what we should probably have. So, so pickleball, I think what I've heard is from the public, and this has been over the last 5 years, football and rugby have been the highest priority. We've gone through a Park Master Plan. We've gone through the CIP. This is all very recently, last year, plus adding that to adding the meetings that were held. I attended 3 meetings, including the Parks and Rec, and I heard very loud and clear the football, the Warriors, and I mean, everybody needs to have, they're the ones that are actually not getting as much play time. Mr. Weiss? Councilmember Weiss?
Thank you. So in looking at the El Corazon Park map, if we were to add a second field, and it was located on the eastern side of what's here now, you'd lose all of the pickleball and all of the basketball. Is that?
Councilmember Weiss, Honorable Mayor, yes, obviously, a multi-purpose field takes up a large area of parkland, and it would require quite a bit of adjustments and loss of certain amenities.
So right now, it looks like there's 4 pickleball, and from what I'm seeing, it looks like 4 basketball.
Yes.
Even on the back, it says basketball, there's 2. So the basketball courts are actually a little more expensive than the pickleball courts.
Yes.
So, but in the survey, basketball rated higher than the multi-sport. So I guess my question to you, Mark, and staff is, if we were to do some type of swap, is pickleball a higher priority? And I get if you only have 4 and you can't really do a tournament there, that you'd want to, I don't want to shortchange anybody. If it's a matter of having a more effective use with pickleball there, then we should do that, and I'm okay with that. So I guess, is the public demand more for pickleball or for basketball?
Councilmember Weiss, Honorable Mayor, obviously, there's demand and desires by several different constituents in this city. Obviously, I think you've heard this evening, pickleball is a very vocal and it's a very fast-growing sport, not only in our community, but across the country. And so, if I were to be asked, I would say that's probably a faster-growing amenity that will be utilized more going forward, based upon the trends in Parks and Recreation here in Southern California, as well as across the country.
Well, then I would say that, I don't know, was yours a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say, if not, I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation to approve the resolution, and I would try to swap out, try to get to 12 pickleball courts, and if that means sacrificing all the basketball, so be it.
Is there a second? Deputy Mayor Keim, do you have any comments?
I think if we take out basketball, next time we're going to hear from the basketball players. And if we're going to hear from each group. I like staff's plan. I think that, again, we're not going to make everyone happy. We could have more pickleball, we could have more basketball, we could have a lot of different things. I think this is a well-balanced plan, and I'd like to move forward with staff's recommendation. Again, I'm only one of 5, and if that means some compromising, we can get something done tonight.
Councilmember Jensen, do you have any comments?
Yes, I think that we have basketball courts. I think that we're severely lacking. We're severely lacking in pickleball courts. If people are having to go to other locations to play pickleball, So I would support more pickleball courts just because I know we have basketball courts in Oceanside, so.
Thank you. And I do have a question. We were talking just about the basketball courts, but there are other pieces to this that could be changed as well. There was an amphitheater. There's already picnic areas. You know, there are some other things here that were probably not very high on anybody's list, but for those who have been on the council for a long time, as well as Parks and Rec Department, there has been a huge demand for field space and pickleball. And the one thing after that are dog parks. So those are the top three that I've heard and that seem to be have come out from the master plan. So there could be a reworking of this map. Is that correct, Mr. Hernandez?
Once again, Councilwoman, thank you for your question. And we would like to go and submit an application that is going to be similar to what the end product will be. However, if you wanted to go and make changes after the state awards the funding, then at that point, we'd have to go back and we'd have to go and get those changes approved. Although, you know, in my experience, I've done many of these already. The state is very willing to help communities because at the end of the day, they want to ensure that the cities get exactly what they want.
Right. Council Member Rodriguez.
So I just want to confirm from a budgetary standpoint, because this needs to equal $8.5 million. Currently on the map, it shows 4 pickleball courts. On the budget, it shows 4 pickleball courts. On the map, it shows 4 basketball courts, but on the budget, it shows 2 basketball courts. Can you confirm how many basketball courts are budgeted?
We budgeted two. Initially, there was 2, and what we did is when we made the changes, we just added the cost associated to that because it was based on the cost for the 4 of them.
And can I ask, can you do multi-court? Is that possible to do basketball and pickleball on the same court or not?
You can, however, because of the netting and the way the striping is, you have probably a more difficult time to go and utilize it. And the size, the dimensions of the courts are different as well.
Mayor, I was talking. It was I was given the floor.
You weren't done yet?
No, I was not.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so if Councilmember Weiss said he wants to get 12 pickleball courts in there, I just don't see the money for it without taking from somewhere else. And so I'm just trying to look for a simple swap out. So could you answer, if we eliminate the basketball courts, how many more pickleball could we add and still be within the budget to get this submitted right away?
So let me look at the budget real quick, if you don't mind. So we're talking about the cost per square foot of 100,000. You're probably talking about.
When is it due, March? Is it March?
It's March 12th.
12th.
So we can go and probably put in there, if you're going to be doing tournaments, you're probably only going to be able to go and do 2 because they require the full, the size is a little bigger because you have to give them space. So you're talking about, you're probably going to be able to get another 4 in there with that price.
Okay.
You can go and you can look at reducing other items if you like, but that's really on a, it's really up to you.
It starts tearing apart what the community and the Parks and Rec moved forward. So just to keep it simple, I think there's a huge demand in our city to add additional resources, and we cannot fully satisfy the great need within the constraints of Park Site 1. It's just not going to happen. So I would agree with Councilmember Weiss's motion. I don't think we have the budgetary items to add 8 more. I think we can get 4 in. Yeah, there we go. Let's just eliminate the basketball is the modified motion, I'm assuming, to replace with pickleball, whatever that would look like.
So, Mr. Hernandez, we need a vote tonight. Let's see, it's due on the 12th, you said?
Yes, but we plan to go and finish. So as soon as you go and you go and adopt the resolution. So at this point, we're going to actually start writing the application. So hopefully, so we'll start the application, and some of it's already been laid out. A lot of things that preliminary stuff that we've already done. But until we know what's going to be within the park, what the actual site's going to look like, it's hard for us to go and do any of the writing and the reasoning behind it. So that's why we were waiting to do the writing. So we plan to get a full application over to the city by next week, by March 3rd. So that way you have an opportunity to go and review our work product. Some of the things that we're still going to be working on while the city reviews the writing, we still have a video that we're going to be making. So I would go and ask, once again, please, if somebody would like to go and participate and tell us why this is so important to the city and why parks matter within the city of Oceanside, please do not hesitate to contact me. We can go and do a Zoom recording and put you as part of the video that we're going to go and make our case to the state to ensure that we get this money for you.
Well, I definitely want to be part of that. I'm hearing that we have a motion on the floor that is to adopt the resolution with the exception of maximizing the number of pickleball courts. Is that good enough, staff?
Did you want to also add a second multipurpose field?
If
we want to maximize those things, we have to look at what the trade-off would be within the park.
No. Okay. Well, I believe I have that desire, having heard from the community, but I'm not hearing anyone else on the dais who wants to do that. But we do want that one field. And then maximizing the pickleball courts. So would that be sufficient to pass for you to go forward and for the consultant to draft the application without us coming back?
Honorable Mayor, council members, I believe that would be sufficient.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor that is to adopt the resolution with the exception of maximizing pickleball courts to accommodate
the budget.
To accommodate, I can't think of the word right now. No, just maximize the courts. Okay, and there is a second by, so the motion is by Councilmember Weiss, second is by Councilmember Rodriguez, and Deputy Mayor Keim, did you have?
Just real quick to add on.
Yes.
Before the vote, I'm going to vote. I want this to go through, but I'm opposed to trying to redesign this on the fly right now and taking something like basketball away. I mean, you go to the different parks, whether it's John Landis or Balderrama, and those are always full. I just think, again, once we change this, we're going to hear from the other side. I just think it's short-sighted to do it on the spot right now, but I want the grant to get through, so I'm going to support finalizing that.
Right, and Deputy Mayor Keim, I feel the same way. I feel like we're trying to design one park to satisfy a lot of needs, and it's just not going to be able to happen. I think that if we're going to be doing pickleball, it should be done right. Tournaments is the word I was thinking of, that we ought to be able to accommodate tournaments, and if we can maximize the number of courts, we will at least be able to accomplish something with this application, along with having at least one field and all the other all the other elements. So I actually was hoping to have 2 fields and pickleball and, but this is a good start. And so I'm going to go ahead and support the motion. No other lights, please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. I'm going to, next is our public hearing that we're running a little bit late on. I'm going to, this is item number 23. I'm going to open this public hearing. This is approval of an operation plan for the El Corazon Aquatic Center, adoption of a resolution establishing a fee schedule for the El Corazon Aquatic Center and event facility, approval to appropriate $340,783 from the general fund assigned infrastructure account to the Neighborhood Services fiscal year 2020 to 2021 budget for the hiring and training of personnel for the operation of the El Corazon Aquatic Center and event facility, and direction to staff on one of the options for budgeting $1.6 million in ongoing expenses and $895,000 as ongoing revenue to the fiscal year 2021-2022 operating budget, including potential options to modify operations at the Brook Street Swim Center and allocate funding to the El Corazon Aquatic Center, with the balance of the Brook Street Center funding to be used for potential employee compensation adjustments. This hearing is continued from our last, from February 3rd. And are there any disclosures from the council members, please?
Mayor Sanchez, if I could just briefly, the public hearing component of this was merely for the adoption of the fees. We're required under California law to conduct a notice of public hearing for the fee component. You did that at your prior meeting. Certainly all the speakers can still speak, but the legal requirement for a public hearing really doesn't exist for the continued portion of this item. So you don't have to go through disclosures unless you want to.
Okay. Do you, any request to go through disclosures? Okay, Ms. Megan Crooks? Oh, wait, do we have any correspondence or petitions
All correspondence has
on that
been
issue?
forwarded to the council prior to this meeting.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Crooks, Interim Neighborhood Services Director.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Megan Crooks with Neighborhood Services Department. Staff is recommending that the City Council approve the operational plan for the El Corazon Aquatic Center, adopt a resolution establishing the fee schedule for the El Corazon Aquatic Center and event facility, appropriate $340,783 from the general fund assigned infrastructure account to Neighborhood Services fiscal year 2021 budget for hiring and training personnel for the operation of the El Corazon Aquatic Center and event facility, and then also provide direction to staff on one of the 4 options for budgeting the $1,664,970 in ongoing expenses and $895,000 as ongoing revenue for the 21-22 fiscal year budget. A quick background, as presented at the meeting on February 3rd, this item is continued from the public hearing item 15. We were asked to return with an option to allocate the Brook Street Swim Center funding to the El Corazon Aquatic Center with any balance to be used for reserve fund for potential employee compensation adjustments. During that time, the City Council, as well as our Parks and Recreation Commissioners, received a great deal of public comments with regard to that action. And on February 17th, 2021, the Parks and Recreation Commission was already holding a special meeting to discuss Prop 68 grant application, and they wanted to be able to discuss this item should the public have comments on it. And so they did hold an informational only meeting. They did they did not take any action, but the Parks and Recreation Commission did ask staff to convey their sentiments on this and urge City Council to not close the Brook Street Pool and to continue funding the El Corazon Aquatic Center. With The current staff report, we did revise it, and because we have changed the dates slightly, we did reduce the current year appropriation of funds by $89,017, because we will begin efforts subject to your approval later in March, so it will cost less during this fiscal year. Staff provided 3 scenarios for reallocation of the Brook Street Swim Center budget. All 3 scenarios do not leave a balance remaining to be utilized for any other purpose or reserve account. Each scenario also has a remaining general fund subsidy that would be required with the budget that's been proposed. In addition, closure of the facility itself will have costs. Just as a closed facility, but even more so as a swimming pool, it will either have to remain filled and we'll have to maintain that water, or we drain it and it can become an attractive nuisance in the area, and we will have to provide security and facility maintenance on that building still. Staff estimates that the event center revenue would conservatively come in around $250,000, and we're basing that off of it's speculative right now due to COVID-19 and with the startup nature of the facility, but we are basing that on, say, a normal year if we didn't have COVID with us. It is still not included in the budgeted revenue of $895,000. Once we do get the event center up and running, we definitely increase the revenue to the budget once we had a good idea of what that would look like. The first scenario that staff provided is a full closure of Brook Street Swim Center, and the Brook Street Swim Center budget includes surf camp and our paddling budgets. It's not just the site at Brook Street itself. The necessary subsidy based on staff's proposed budget is close to $770,000, and the closure of Brook Street, that annual budget is $775,000. It also brings in revenue of $166,000, so full closure of all of those programs, we'd have to deduct the revenue from that, and then we're estimating a cost to maintain the city property at approximately $75,000. So that would still leave a remaining subsidy needed from the general fund of $235,970. In the second scenario, proposed utilizing the Brooks Swim Center budget, this would be the full closure of the Brook site, but continue the surf camp and paddling programs. That would be primarily staffing costs with a little bit of materials and supplies, but you're deducting the Brooks budget of $775,000 minus $166,000, the cost to maintain the property, and then we add in the cost to run surf camp and the paddling programs alone. The revenue coming in from those would be approximately $48,000, and then we'd still have a general fund subsidy for El Corazon at approximately $313,000. The third scenario would be to start a seasonal operation at Brook Street Swim Center and include the surf camp and paddling programs. And this is done in jurisdictions when you have a primary aquatic center, and then you can have other alternative pool sites for summer programming. And the necessary subsidy would still remain at $272,970, but it would continue summer operations at Brooks Street Pool at a cost of $225,000 and revenue of $113,000. And if there's still consideration of adapting Brooks Street Swim Center at all, this program would still enable us to provide services to the neighborhoods surrounding the pool when they primarily use the facility. And that would be the highest impact that we could provide, that we do provide from that facility to the neighborhoods. And then there's scenario 4, which is staff's original recommendation, not considering any closure of Brook Street Swim Center and continuing to provide general fund subsidy of $769,970, which is included in the 5-year forecast that was approved by City Council on February 3rd. So with that, staff is recommending the approval of the operational plan, the adoption of the resolution and fee schedule, and appropriate $340,783 into this fiscal year's budget to begin the training and hiring of personnel, and also provide direction for the fiscal year 21-22 budget. And I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And so the public hearing has to do with the closure of Brook Street. That was the additional direction that the council gave at the last meeting, right? That
Well, the item was
direction.
continued for a discussion about that issue and potential, options and potential reallocation. The reason for the hearing is the fees, and you've already conducted the fee hearing at your last public hearing.
Right, but we didn't vote on anything.
You did not.
Right, okay.
Other than to continue it to a date certain.
Okay, so we do have how many speakers?
As of right now, we have 30 speakers.
30 speakers, okay. So let's do 2 minutes each person. Just want to let you all know, we wish we could give you 3 minutes each, but 30 times 2 is an hour. Please consider your comments and try to stay into the 2 minutes. Thank you so much. First the speakers, and it comes back to the council. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Votto?
Our first public comment, our first speaker is Sandy Dildine, and she needs to unmute herself, and to be followed by Armando Chacon, to be followed by Jody Diamond. Sandy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi.
All right.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you for having me. I just make it quick. I support scenario 4, which would keep all the pools open. It's my understanding that, the El Corazon pool was added due to the need for more pools in the city. And while that will be more convenient for me where I live, I don't want my good fortune to be at the expense of other neighborhoods. All pools are needed in a city of this size. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Jody.
Our next public comments from Armando Chacon. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. To be followed by Jody Diamond. Armando, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and the City Council members for the opportunity to speak. As an Oceanside resident since 1997, I've had an opportunity to watch the city's smart growth that we all enjoy today. The pool, El Corazon, has been supported by the community and City Council for almost a decade. Financing has always been an important part of that discussion, and as recently as October of last year, the staff made a recommendation of using lease revenue bonds to fund El Corazon's operation and moving forward in the construction. The last speaker brought up a really good point, the impact that closing the pool would have on the community around it. I think is something that really needs to be looked at. The Boys and Girls Club, not to mention the community around Balderrama, also, they would be without a pool. And those after-school programs that the Boys and Girls Club used would have to find other means to get to a pool. So there would be additional costs down the road for other community members. And in looking at the districts and seeing how the pools are being distributed around all 4 districts, I was surprised that District 1's representative would vote to consider closing the pool. And knowing that there are roughly 42,000 constituents in each district, I wanted to let the council know I don't believe that the constituents were advised of this closure or possible closure, given the community support that has been around all the pools staying open. The last thing I would say is I'd reiterate what the last speaker said. And the notes that I've read around workshops and council meetings, the pool was meant to support the overload and increase Oceanside's ability to have aquatics tournaments and bring
Can
in
you
more
wrap your comments up, Mr. Chacon?
Yes. Yeah. So the idea that we're going to be closing a pool would hinder our ability to increase the amount of services we offer at El Corazon.
Thank you so much.
Our next public speaker is Jody Diamond, to be followed by Sherry Mackin, to be followed by Diane Nygaard. Jody, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sanchez and City Council members. I am Jody Diamond, CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Oceanside. I've been serving the Oceanside community for 14 years. Boys and Girls Clubs of Oceanside impacts over 4,200 youth a year between the ages of 5 to 18. Pre-COVID, we provided before, after school, and camp programming. Currently, we provide a back-to-school program that supports our youth daily from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. The Brook Street Pool is a vital resource to our youth and their families. Every summer, we have walking field trips to this pool where over 500 youth each summer have the ability to learn vital water skills, practice swimming, and just have fun with their friends. Benefits of swimming are plentiful: the physical well-being, social and emotional development. And for any child, they don't have to be a star athlete because swimming is inclusive, or it should be. We know the statistics. Fatal drowning of children of color is 3 times higher than white children. The USA Swimming Foundation found that 64% of children of color cannot swim. At Boys and Girls Clubs of Oceanside, our demographics include 63% of children of color, with an additional 13% identifying as 2 or more races. Taking funding out of a poor neighborhood to augment resources in a wealthier neighborhood shows a complete disregard for equity and a wholesale indifference to the needs of the primarily Latino residents who rely on the Brook Street Pool. We understand that resources are limited and creative use of city funding is required, but we do ask that those decisions not be made on the backs of our city's poorest residents. We call on all city council members to do the right thing, which would be to keep Brook Street Pool open year-round at the current
5
level
seconds.
of funding. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight on behalf of our children.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is Sherry Mackin. Sherry, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Our Parks and Recreation Master Plan states Oceanside needs to retain our current pools, the soon opening aquatic center, and more pools. Don't close Brook Street Pool. It serves an underserved neighborhood, and I'm adamantly opposed to taking 1 dime out of Brook Street Pool budget.
Uh-oh. Ms. Mackin, you are frozen.
We could come back to Ms. Mackin.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Ms. Mackin.
Our next public comment is from Diane Nygaard.
More affluent neighborhood. Brook Street Pool is a lifesaver for many children in East Side.
Still frozen.
Can we bring her back?
Yeah. We'll come back to Ms. Mackin. All right. We're getting Ms. Nygaard online.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Nygaard, whenever you're ready.
Yes. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Oceanside, of course, is a beach town, but to safely enjoy our beach, we need to know how to swim, and our pools are essential for that. Swimming is a kind of healthy outdoor activity that we really need, especially for our kids. And it is the worst kind of public policy to take away services from a disadvantaged neighborhood and give them to a wealthier one. We need all 3 pools for public safety, for public health, and for social justice. Please fully fund all 3 pools and adopt scenario 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go back to Ms. Mackin. Looks like your internet connection's better now, so we'll go back to you. You froze and then you disappeared, so we're going back to you. All right, whenever you're
muted.
ready.
You're muted right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Our Parks and Rec master plan states Oceanside needs to retain our current pools, the soon opening aquatic center, and more pools. Don't close Brook Street Pool. It serves an underserved neighborhood, and I adamantly oppose to taking one dime out of Brook Street Pool budget for a more affluent neighborhood. The Brook Street Pool is a lifesaver for many children in East Side. Kids who attend the Boys and Girls Club use that pool. Oceanside High School water polo and swim teams use that pool. How can you consider abandoning these children? Look at all the grants the city has provided for businesses. It's time you think about the children in the city and make right your previous vote to close the pool by taking the funding away. Now about the El Corazon, please don't hold up the opening of the aquatic center. We need the revenues to help offset costs. And examining the staff report, I disagree with the suggestion of charging non-residents the same price as residents for pool drop-in recreational swim. I understand that there might be challenges for those working up front, but if Carlsbad and other cities can handle those challenges, well, so can we. Carlsbad requires a waiver is signed and accompanied by your address. If people are going to lie, they will lie, but we can't afford to discount non-residents' entry fee. When we need all the revenue we can get for the center. This pool will be close to Carlsbad residents south of College Boulevard, and I'll bet you they won't want to drive all the way to Alga, rather travel a couple of miles to get to our aquatic center. Think about the additional revenues we can capture from out-of-town soccer teams that stops for swims after a game. We need and deserve that additional dollar from non-residents. To wrap it up, please fund our pools and let's build more. Adopt option 4. Thank you.
Our next public speaker is Midori Simovich, to be followed by Stephanie Ramos, to be followed by Mary Hart. Midori, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. I represent the Friends of the Corazon, and I will make it very succinct because everybody said what we wanted to say. Basically, we need 4 swimming pools at least. This is a big city, and please consider to fund all the pools, and please do not close Brook Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Ramos, you are next. We're getting you all set up, and whenever you're ready.
My name is Stephanie Ramos. I'm a district resident, grew up in a low-income family. As such, I understand firsthand the difficulties low-income children face in obtaining low-cost opportunities for recreational activity. And that's why on February 6, 2021, I started a petition against the closure of the pool. My intention with said petition is to elevate the importance of Brook's pool starting in our community, and in this span in 2 weeks, I was able to collect over 6 signatures. These signatures are only a fraction of the amount of people against this matter. To the council, the closure of the pool may seem trivial in comparison to other matters, but to our community, children in the community, this pool is an important opportunity for growth, self-development, and one of the few low-cost opportunities available to them. Many low-income families do not have the resources available to enroll children in football, cheerleading, or other similar extracurriculars because these opportunities often have a cost. Brook Street Pool benefits families and children of color for 2 reasons. First, its proximity to the neighborhood allows people to walk to the pool without needing a vehicle, gas, or bus to get there. Second, there is also only a small fee associated with the use of the pool, and no equipment is necessary other than a swimsuit. Thus, I ask the City Council to please consider how low-income children of color will be disproportionately by this closure, and I ask you to vote on no on closing Brook Street Pool.
Ms. Ramos, how many in your petition? Did you say 600?
6,000.
6,000.
6,089.
6,089. Did you provide a copy to the city clerk?
Not yet, but I can provide that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next public speaker is Mary Hart, to be followed by Zachary Zanoni, to be followed by Joe Hill. Mary, whenever you're ready.
Hi. It seems to me like certain parts of Oceanside are being pitted against other parts of Oceanside. The headlines that come out, Oceanside is taking from the poor to give to the rich, is totally not how I want to see my city portrayed in the news. We need all our parks. We do not need to close one to open another. I find it very sad that there is this division being set into the works. The master park plan says that we need 4 city parks or 4 city pools. And with the new one at El Corazon, that only gives us 3. Oceanside Developer Park impact fees are way lower than any of the surrounding cities. We are 3 times lower than Carlsbad and 5 times lower than Encinitas. Please raise the developer park impact fees. This should solve the financial problem and thus not force us to close any of our pools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hart.
Zachary Zanoni, we're getting you all set up, and whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Sanchez, and thank you, Council. I'm Zach Zanoni, 3772 Via Las Villas, Oceanside, California. I'm a new resident to Oceanside, but I'm not ignorant to the impact that this will have upon the community or the message that it conveys to our low-income residents and those people of color that also call our community home. This is textbook gentrification. You're proposing limiting or closing an imperative part of this community's fabric, its tapestry, to better the life of more white, more affluent residents on the other side of town. And that's ignorant at best, and it's racist at worst. And now I'm not implying that anyone is racist or that the proposal itself was ingrained in racism. However, that is considered to be implied, and all the ingredients are there for that to occur. Hence why I'm speaking to you today. And that in itself should make you question whether this proposal is a good course of action, whether you're comfortable with people feeling this way. Now remember, as one of the previous speakers mentioned, over 6,000 people have signed the petition in opposition to this. And because of that, today I'm imploring you not only to make the right decision, but to send the right message. As we all know, it's not unheard of gentrification across North County, and it's important that we send the right message, that we value community input, we value inclusivity, and most importantly, that our residents are not expendable in the interest of saving money. Because at the end of the day, the most important parts of our society is our community and our people, and not the dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zanoni.
Our next public speaker is Joe Hill, to be followed by Ann Olmsted, to be followed by Wayne Godine. Joe, whenever you're ready.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, good evening. Joe Hill, 20-year resident of Oceanside. This video is from 2 years ago.
Right now, the Brook Street pool alone is costing close to $50,000 a month by itself. Brook Street and Marshall together are costing our city $748,000 a year. In my opinion, if we build the aquatic center, we need to close down one or the other. We have to save money. Brook Street's sinking into the ground. Let's do something better for our city with that space. That's my opinion on that.
So Councilmember Rodriguez is now flip-flopping and lying to the Parks Commission and the residents of District 1 about not closing the Brook Street pool, just like he lied to his own District 2 residents about North River Farms. He is just using Brook Street as a pawn in his political chess game with the mayor. He and other council members' ultimate agendas are to sell off as much city land to developers as possible. So here we are tonight with this alleged prefabricated budget crisis, with 3 untenable scenarios spearheaded by the council members of District 2 and District 4 to intimidate and disenfranchise council members and residents of Districts 1 and 3. Shame on them. The city manager clearly explained how the pool was going to be paid for last meeting. Maybe you had your microphones and your hearing aids both turned off. You also ignored the 5-year budget plan, which was positive, and I believe included all the pools. On a positive note, since this body without question approved a change order
Please
late
wrap up
last...
your comments, Mr. Hill.
Sorry?
Please wrap up your comments.
Right. Mr. Navarro has an exhibit he's passing out where the council approved a change order last year giving $311,000 for the new arena construction, which has not even been formally presented and approved yet by this council. You need to get a $311,000 check from Sudbury and apply that money to the El Corazon pool costs and vote on scenario 4.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Ann Olmsted's our next public speaker, to be followed by Wayne Godine, to be followed by Jane Marshall. Ann, are you there?
I am.
Whenever you're ready.
I don't know what picture you're looking at, but that's not me.
No, it isn't. That's Andrew Tapaloa.
There you go.
There you
it
go.
is.
There you go. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mayor and council members, at the last city council meeting, a motion was passed to continue an item to the February 24th, 2021 council meeting to include allocating Brook Street pool funding to El Corazon Pool, with the balance of the Brook Street pool funding to be used for a reserve fund for potential employee compensation adjustments. That obviously has now been changed slightly. But the League of Women Voters, North County, San Diego, unequivocally opposes this recommendation. The city recently unanimously approved the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Outdoor aquatic centers were listed as facilities that do not meet the level of standards today. Oceanside's adopted performance standard for pools is 1 pool per 50,000 persons. The master plan shows a current deficit of 1.71 pools for the city. Obviously, closing one of the 2 pools currently in operation would only exacerbate that identified deficit. The League of Women Voters has studied parks and recreation. We have adopted positions, and we find the closing of a pool to be counterproductive to serving the needs of Oceanside residents. Obviously, we support option number 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Wayne Godine, to be followed by Jane Marshall, to be followed by Wilson Godine. Wayne, whenever you're ready.
You hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Can you
Thank
adjust
you.
the screen, Wayne? Wayne, can you adjust the screen so we can see you?
Yeah.
Still don't see you.
Okay.
Nope. Okay.
Well, we could.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Wayne. Whenever you're ready, Wayne. Wayne, are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, wait. We're going to need you to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Tonight's meeting is really unusual, kind of weird for me because we're talking about El Corazon, the primary issue up there, El Corazon, and a lot of our volunteer work with our group has been in a lot of the neighborhoods from the grassroots standpoint. Keep in mind, a lot of us working in these neighborhoods, the tough ones in Oceanside, aren't looking for handouts. We're really just trying to make things better for our community. So I'm not really looking at the insensitivity sometimes that comes across when someone makes a flippant comment or a condescending one to people that's been used to it over the years. But when I look at your director, the aquatics, Mr. Olson, he states that he's got 20 years experience, in the staff report in the aquatics management area. Since overseeing the aquatics division, what cost-saving measures, have been implemented over the past 18 months? What's Oceanside's track record? on improving and becoming more efficient in the aquatics division. Is there a feasibility study? Was there one done that the public can view? Any issues regarding Brook Street Pool and its condition should have been an ongoing conversation separate from the financial condition and needs of the aquatic center. Why is there no mention of cost-saving measures in the staff report? The current amount of $769,000 roughly per subsidy for Brook Street and Marshall Street pools seems extremely high and close to the same figure of the expected deficit for the El Corazon Aquatic Center, which is almost 3 times the size of Brook Street pool. Please clarify efficiency methods used or to be implemented. And maybe because of some issues that keep coming up, I think from maybe statements by council or from the staff, we were referred to in meetings prior to with the former Parks and Rec director as you people.
5 seconds
what do
left.
you people want? And in the meetings, we and it never really occurred. So maybe some sensitivity or at least establishing the Community Relations Commission again, like you had one in the early 2000s. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Wayne.
Our next public comments from Jane Marshall, to be followed by Wilson Godine, to be followed by Scott. Jane, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, council and everyone else. My name is Jane Marshall. I'm a 30-year resident and a strong advocate for the aquatic center at El Corazon. What I really don't understand is how this trade-off even came to be. What is this really about? I mean, Councilman Weiss suggested that we defund the long-standing pool to support the financial wellness of the El Corazon Aquatic Center. I mean, wasn't he involved in this for years as an employee and as even a consultant after city manager? And then like at the last 11th hour to throw this red herring into the mix when staff has already said that over 5 years it would be considered. And I know I heard something about COVID being, taking out the general fund, but yet, I understand that there's millions expected in recovery from the state and Fed. I mean, this is just unnecessary debate and unnecessary friction causing in the community. And it should not be what the council is focused on. Big picture stuff, not nits and gnats. So please do not steal from Peter to pay Paul. Vote to approve option 4 to fund both facilities. And let's just be done with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Wilson Godine, to be followed by Scott, to be followed by Arlene Hammerschmidt. Wilson, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go.
I'll just be short. I just thought it was a no-brainer that you would not consider closing Brook Street Pool to help fund kind of like, to me, it's like an oversized aquatic center for what Oceanside needs. I mean, we need 4, according to our population, but one of the pools is it's a grand kind of a deal. So, but yeah, that shouldn't be the reason to close one of our other pools. You're almost defeating the purpose that we're looking for. So, but in my opinion, it is basically a no-brainer to not even try to close that pool, which we all grew up and can actually walk to the pool like we used to. So for whatever reason, don't even think about doing something like that. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next public comment was Scott, but we don't see Scott. He gave us no last name. So we'll move on to our next public comment from Arlene Hammerschmidt, to be followed by Janet Bledsoe Lacey, to be followed by Roger Davenport. And Arlene, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and Council. An ounce of prevention is still worth a pound of cure. Brook Street Pool's learning and recreation activities are prevention and have kept more kids out of trouble with our police, which would be considered the cure, than we can count. Anything short of keeping Brook Street open is future financial folly. We don't close it and then add to the public safety budget, because now kids are finding other things to do that increase police calls, the need for more police officers, pay, pension, et cetera. If the rule is, if the money gets tight, it's the last thing added gets cut first. Therefore, any shortfalls comes out of the budget for the El Corazon Aquatic Center, not either existing pool. If there's not a suit started already, or if somebody's not talking about a suit, I think there should be. Yes, taking from the poor of color at risk and giving to the rich is a form of systemic racism and wildly unjust, regardless of the intent. You just don't do that. Possible solutions: immediately increase the development impact fees higher than Carlsbad and Encinitas. Oceanside is the last gem on the San Diego coast, and we're giving away all what's left without appropriate compensation. Please consider what Todd Madison has to say later about employee pensions, structure, cost, and benefits. We can do better, and we can be fair too. Stephanie Ramos, thank you for speaking tonight and citing your numbers on the petition. Over 6,800 people signed the petition to keep Brook Street Pool. Some of those may have been out of state.
Ms. Hammerschmidt, can you wrap your comments up?
At least 5 of those are my former students who enjoyed that pool, learned to swim, saved lives of others, and happened to be in another state. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Janet Lacey, to be followed by Roger Davenport, to be followed by Cindy Davenport. And Ms. Lacey, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. My name is Janet Bledsoe Lacey, and I have been a resident of Oceanside since the 1960s, along with my parents. And I'm very proud that my parents have been the people who caused the ordinance that was created to cause a vote of the people before the city interfered with or sold or took away any of the recreational properties of Oceanside. There had to be a vote of the people. Now, in this instance, we need to not let go of Brook Street pool, nor Marshall Street. That's not on the list yet, but it could be. As a long-term resident, our kids, who are both attorneys here, who practiced with my law firm, that is one of the largest law firms in Oceanside, have learned to swim in the Oceanside's pools, both Marshall Street and Brook Street pools. This is not just a benefit that is adjacent to those pools that are physically in that area. It's a benefit for the entire city of Oceanside, that the Brook Street pool has been an asset for all of us longtime Oceansiders and will remain to be such. We've grown to such a size of this city that we can afford to accommodate our public recreation areas that include not only Marshall, not only Brook Street, but the Aquatic Center as well. And the city is doing this, as I understand it, in exactly the way you should, with a bond that is being issued to pay for that. So it is not a matter of having to sacrifice one for another. And having served on the Oceanside Unified School District Board of Trustees for 22 years, and having passed 2 different bonds that have brought $400 million combined to the Oceanside Unified School District to change the face of our school district, this is what Oceanside needs to do. Save the Brook Street pools, save Marshall Streat, and adopt the Aquatic Center.
Ms. Lacey, can you wrap up your comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comments from Roger Davenport, to be followed by Sydney Davenport, to be followed by Lisa Russell. Mr. Davenport, whenever you're ready. You could go.
Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Roger Davenport at 541 Crouch Street. Time is short, so let me get right to it. I'm contending that the staff revenue estimate for El Corazon Aquatic Center is way too conservative, and therefore the subsidy needed for the facility is overestimated. First, as the staff pointed out tonight, because of COVID, they didn't include $250,000 in expected revenue from the facility, the event facility that's being built as part of it. Second, consider applying the actual Brook Street pool usage data contained in attachment H to the El Corazon facility, noting that El Corazon has over 4 times the capacity of the Brook Street pool, with 30 swim lanes compared to 7 at Brook Street. Considering only drop-ins and memberships, scaling the Brook Street data to the El Corazon facility gives over $800,000 in revenue compared to the staff estimate of $300,000. Did I just freeze up?
No.
Oh, okay. Just these 2 considerations add about $750,000 to the revenue estimate. That would essentially cover the cost of running the facilities and eliminate the need for large subsidies. I'd actually expect even higher usage and revenue from such an attractive and versatile facility that's so convenient to so much of Oceanside's population. There's been a large unmet need for pools in our city, and now that we've built it, I do believe they will come. Therefore, I implore you to choose option 4. The people of Oceanside want and need all of our pools operational. Closing one to open another is short-sighted, punitive, and unnecessary. If I've got a couple more seconds left, I'd like to suggest
8 seconds. 6, 5,
fees
4.
for residents be reduced significantly and fees for non-residents increased.
Thank you very much,
you.
Mr. Davenport.
Our next public comments from Cindy Davenport, to be followed by Lisa Russell, to be followed by Ellen Bartlett. Cindy, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm Cindy Davenport. I'm a resident of historic Loma Alta in District 1. This issue was precipitated by the motion that was seconded on February 3rd, came out of the blue. The El Corazon Aquatic Center has been planned for a long time, and funding is just not a huge issue. The funding was carefully planned, and staff told us on February 3rd that sufficient funds are available. Property tax and sales tax revenues have increased according to the second quarter budget report provided by staff at the last meeting. A budget surplus is also forecast for the next 5 years. It is obvious that our community's children need to have the Brook Street pool continue to operate. Let's not disappoint them and deprive them of this facility for no good reason. I ask that you, 1, vote for the scenario 4 financial impact. 2, do not delay the August opening of the El Corazon Aquatic Center. There's no reason for delaying the collection of revenues from the operation of the center, let alone depriving the community of this pool, since based on our population, we still are short 1 pool. We should have 4. The staff report states that the estimated revenue figures are much lower than what will actually occur. I ask that the fee schedule be increased for non-residents and decreased for residents. In addition, after restrictions of COVID-19 are lifted, there will be more revenue generated by the event facility. 3, keep Brook Street pool open. Please note that at a special meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission on February 17th, the commission discussed the Brook Street Swim Center with 70 members of the public in attendance. The commission requested staff and the council liaison convey its consensus
5 seconds left.
in urging the city council to not transfer budget from Brook Street Swim Center to El Corazon. Vote for scenario 4, please.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Lisa Russell, to be followed by Ellen Bartlett, to be followed by Diane Bedrosian. And we're getting Lisa.
Good evening.
Yep. All right, ready.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sanchez and council members. This is Lisa Russell again. Oceanside born 1960. That means I'm 60 years old. I've been here. I've swam in that pool. My husband was born and raised in Oceanside, Rusty Russell. He's swam in that pool. We have 3 children, 30, 28, and 25, 3 boys who've also swam in that pool. Oceanside High uses that pool for water polo and swimming, they walk to that pool. I mean, I think you guys can tell I'm getting a little emotional because I just can't believe that you people are trying to take away our community pool. I mean, I didn't write anything down tonight, but I just wanted to speak and let everybody know that I'm Oceanside through and through. I am a member of that pool, a year member. I swim at that pool at 6 a.m. in the morning. And yes, since COVID, they've gone down to 7 lanes. They used to have a big following for the masters swimming. I know 2 people that are very old that have passed away, 190 and 195, that both of them swam at the pool. The pool is needed again by young and old. I beg you to take on scenario 4 and keep our Brook Street pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Ellen Bartlett is next, to be followed by Diane Bedrosian, to be followed by Karina Martinez. Ellen, you're on.
Oh, hi, my name is Ellen Bartlett. I'm a long-term Oceanside resident. I just wanted to say this Brook Street pool is an integral part of our community, and I spent time there as a swim team clerk while I was teaching high school at Oceanside High. And the Brook Street pool is located in the highest density neighborhood in our city, and it's within walking distance of Oceanside High School as well as the Boys and Girls Club. And closing the pool shouldn't even be an option. Many of the residents, and especially the children that live there, will not be able to get to El Corazon. And I also wanted to say I've been listening to all the speakers, and I agree 100% with all of them. And they all suggested scenario 4 or option 4 as the one. I've been going to city council meetings and participating in them in Oceanside and Vista for many, many years. And I don't want this to be another case of every single person speaks out for an issue and the council decides to vote against it anyways. I'm just tired of those scenarios. It's obvious that the citizens and the residents of Oceanside want scenario 4, and we don't want pools closed. We need more pools, not fewer. And there's no reason why you should defy the will of the people of Oceanside and have your own way. There's funding available. These resources were looked at, and we need to do what the people want. This is our city, and it's not an unreasonable request to have the Brook Street pool stay open. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Diane Bedrosian, to be followed by Karina Martinez, to be followed by Drew Andrioff. Dr. Bedrosian, whenever you're ready. And please unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I was using my phone and other. Honorable Mayor and Council, I'm a pediatrician in private practice in Vista and on staff at Tri-City Medical Center. I am very concerned about the possibility of the Brook Street pool being closed. I feel that closing this facility would be disastrous to the community and to our children. About 800 children drown each year in the U.S. Although we live in a beach community with an ocean mere yards or at most a few miles away, many children without the financial resources rarely go to the beach, and more than that, they rarely are able to access a private pool. As such, many of these children never learn to swim and continue to be non-swimming adolescents and adults. Looking at the statistics, I have seen similar amongst my patients. In 2017, USA Swimming, the governing body for the sport of swimming in the U.S., found that 64% of African American children are unable to swim. Their study also showed that if a parent does not know how to swim, there's only a 13% chance that their child will learn how to swim. The CDC states that in swimming pools, African American children ages 5 to 19 diet rates 5.5 times higher than those of white children. Studies have shown that formal swim lessons have proven to reduce the risk of drowning by 88% amongst children ages 1 to 4. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends swim lessons as a layer of protection against drowning that can begin for many children starting at age 1. Recent studies suggest that water survival skills training and swim lessons can help reduce drowning risk for children between ages of 1 to 4. By their 4th birthday, they can usually learn basic water survival skills such as floating, treading water, and getting to an exit point. By age 5 or 6, most children in swim lessons can master the front crawl. The Brook Street Pool provides an accessible and safe place for these skills to be learned. Losing this facility would be devastating. I respectfully request that you keep this and the other pools in Oceanside open and available to the community. It is essential. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Karina Martinez, to be followed by Drew Andrioff, to be followed by Mayra Gomez. And
Hello,
whenever you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I am opposed to Oceanside Brook Street Pool being closed. The pool is used by many community members, such as Oceanside High School students, the Boys and Girls Club, and most importantly, the families and children that live in District 1. If the pool is closed down, who is going to transport them to another pool? One might say they can take public transportation, but how do we know that a family will be able to afford an additional cost of a bus ticket, sprinter ticket? Councilmember Jensen, in the last meeting you said, quote, "I embody the very diversity of Oceanside. My mother's family are immigrants from Mexico, the state of Sonora to be exact. My father's family are originally immigrants from Denmark, moved here from Minnesota." End of quote. Having said this, I am sure you are aware that there are many families in District 1 that might not be here tonight to comment about Brook Street Pool. There are families that are undocumented and may be afraid to speak about this topic. If you embody diversity, then reconsider your vote. You are the representative for District 1 and should be for the people, not against the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Drew Andrioff, to be followed by Mayra Gomez, to be followed by Austin Wright. And Drew, whenever you're ready.
All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Drew Andrioff, District 1. First, I'd like to say I think I've heard pickleball more in the last week than I've heard in my entire life, and I'm looking forward to those El Corazon courts opening up. But I would like to request the council tonight to deny the recommendation to close Brook Street Swim Center. The amount appropriated from the closure will not meet the annual operating costs for El Corazon. Many of us, included myself, learned to swim, practice, and test it out at Brook Street. When I was a kid, we had to actually tread water for 20 minutes to be able to join the surf team for my middle school. The pool has a lot of history for us. It is a vital resource to the district and to the immediate neighborhoods in the east side. To place the burden of trying to get these kids from the neighborhood to El Corazon, frankly, it's unacceptable. When the El Corazon Aquatic Center was being discussed, the recurring theme of the meeting was how do we pay for it? Mayor Sanchez, you discussed the deficiencies in several accounts from previous approved projects and mentioned that the city did not have the funds to complete those projects, nor did it have the money to reallocate the monies from the amount to provide a down payment for the aquatic center. Councilmember Kime almost prophetically made a statement, and I'd like to quote here: "What happens if we build the beautiful new pool and wind up in recession and then cue a global pandemic 5 months later?" As much as I believe the El Corazon Aquatic Center will be an asset to the city, the financial impact to our budget is staggering, and it should not be news to anyone that we are now struggling to find the cost for the annual operations of the center. This was an issue that was known at the inception of this project and through the last 16 months of construction. Personally, I don't know where the money is going to come from, but it shouldn't be at the cost of the residents of District 1. Keep Brook Street alive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Mayra Gomez, to be followed by Austin Wright, to be followed by Gordon Chavez. And Mayra, you're on. Byra, you're on.
Good evening, everybody, or everyone. My comment is in regards to the Brooks Pool. Brooks Pool helps low-income families take their kids to an affordable location to learn how to swim, avoiding future accidents, drownings at public pools, and the ocean. In turn, these kids that get this opportunity to take the lessons are then able to teach their siblings, their cousins, their friends that for one reason or another are not able to make it to these lessons. They might be at the babysitter, and the babysitter might not be able to take them. All children who live in Oceanside should know how to swim, regardless of their economic status. Brook Pool helps a lot of these children in the neighborhood. who otherwise wouldn't. My daughter is one of these children. Thank you for keeping Brooks Pool open. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, and thank you, all council members.
Thank you.
Austin Wright, to be followed by Gordon Chavez, to be followed by Kimberly Fluharty. Austin, you're on.
Good evening.
Austin, we accidentally muted you, so we're going to start you all over again.
Yeah, hold on, Austin.
All right.
We're going to get you going again.
Is he good?
Unmute.
He's still muted.
He's still muted, yeah.
Hold on.
Okay. I think, can you say something?
Can you unmute?
Oh, we can hear you now.
There you are.
All right.
There you are. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening to the Honorable Mayor and Council members. This is Austin Wright from Skylark Drive. More than 30 years ago, the first time I ever jumped off a diving board was at Brook Street Pool. The first time I ever swam into the deep end was at Brook Street Pool. And the first time I ever met with my friends over the weekend without letting my parents know was also at Brook Street Pool. Now, the City Hall, which has been perpetually accused of bribery and corruption, has unveiled new and fresh resolutions which reek of bribery and corruption. Do not shut down Brook Street Pool. If you are currently being sued for $1 million+ in court, you need to recuse yourself immediately from voting on anything. If you are also seemingly not even listed as living in the district you represent, you need to recuse yourself immediately from voting on anything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Gordon Chavez, to be followed by Kimberly Fluharty, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name, to be followed by Kai Guzman. Gordon, whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Mayor and City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. Regarding the Brook Street Pool, I can remember when I lived on Center Street in the early 80s, scrounging around trying to find 50 cents so that I could go to the Brook Street Pool. It took 50 cents. My brother and I would go under the sofa, we'd go into my mom's car, look under the chairs, under the seats, and we'd find 50 cents, and we could walk to the Brook Street Pool. I learned to swim at the Brook Street Pool. So I can't imagine that neighborhood, those two neighborhoods, the East Side and Center Street or Crown Heights, not having this pool as a resource for our youth. They need this. They need the physical activity. They need to just be able to do something that they enjoy doing. They need to learn to swim. What it does emotionally and spiritually, I think, is also huge. So I can't imagine how this plan came about to say that we need to shut this down to start the other one. I'm not against the aquatic center. The idea of an aquatic center sounds great as well. But I think that we definitely need both. I believe in the City Council. I know that you guys can figure it out. It may take looking at other aquatic centers nearby. There's one in Carlsbad, the Alga Norte aquatic facility, looking at the size and what it takes to run that, figuring out the finances and figuring out the staffing that it needs. I think that I truly believe that you guys can do it. I vote for keeping both of those open. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Kimberly Fluharty, to be followed by Kai Guzman, to be followed by Eric Joyce. And Kim, whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kimberly Fluharty. I'm a CNA at Tri-City Hospital. I'm from the Deep Valley, the D2 district, a current resident of the Tri-City D3 district. First and foremost, I would like to express my grief. I'm currently grieving for the city of Oceanside that I once used to know. Oceanside that is almost unrecognizable. All thanks to the previous city council's decisions to continue to sell out our beautiful city to developers who want to change our city versus upgrade or improve our city, all to put $1 in their pocket. When you upgrade something, it's meant to add to something, which brings me to the subject of the El Corazon Aquatic Center. This pool was meant to add to our city, not take away from our city or change our city. By closing Brook Street Pool just to allocate more funds to El Corazon, you are taking away from the poor and disenfranchised neighborhoods around that pool and then giving it to the rich. You are taking away from the kids above all. You are taking away from one of the few safe places that these kids in these neighborhoods have to go to stay out of the streets. You're taking away from the kids of the Boys and Girls Club. You're taking away from all of us who have gone to these pools our whole lives. I still take my son to these pools just because of the atmosphere and the memories that it creates. Before you decide to close such a vital resource to the kids and families of the surrounding area of Brook Street Pool, I urge you to understand what you will be taking from them, especially you, Council Member Jensen, because these are the people in which you're supposed to represent, and I don't see how or why you could agree to this. Instead of changing and taking away, try to find a way to upgrade or fix this pool. Show the community that they mean as much to you as the people of Rancho del Oro and El Corazon surrounding areas. This community wants to save these pools. We have reached over 6,000 signatures and climbing, and that alone should tell you guys something. And I also wanted to add that
Thank
in
you.
our plan. Okay, time's
Ms.
up.
Flaherty, yes. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Kai Guzman, to be followed by Eric Joyce. Kai, whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening. Good evening to all those who are watching and folks who care about this issue but are working and couldn't send an email in by 4 p.m. and aren't able to speak today. My name is Kai Guzman. I grew up in District 1. I was raised on Garfield Street for many, many years of my childhood and know this community really well, and it is so precious to my heart. I'm calling today in opposition to the closing of the Brook Street Pool for the obvious reasons that everyone has already mentioned thus far. The fact that kids, families who are BIPOC and are working class families need to know how to swim, but also more importantly, as a kid who grew up in that region, now, going to be a parent soon myself too, it's just absolutely heartbreaking that we have elected officials who even are talking about this or considering this, because you send a clear message to kids who hear about this at the dinner table that you don't care about them. And that's honestly really deplorable. And I try not to be angry a lot, but this particular thing is honestly so heartbreaking and frustrating to see. Yes, for the fact that kids need to feel like they can have opportunity and have experiences that everybody else has, right? And for the sake of making sure that our families are safe, that people aren't drowning, but also for dignity for our communities. It's so important. I mean, I can't believe that after the last 4 years, just the last year, everything we've seen, that this is something that you all are considering and are talking about. We should be investing in our kids right now and in these communities right now who are so impacted by everything that's been happening. And it's honestly, I just really want to echo the voices of so many people who aren't able to be here, who don't speak English and can't be on here right now, who are scared of being on here. Their voices matter, their lives matter, their dignity matters. Just let kids be able to grow up and know that they're important and that they deserve to go out and play in the pool when it's hot, or just be regular kids and have a chance to do that. Don't take that away. Please, we're better than that. We need to show that we're better than that. We're gonna show that we're better than that. Make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kai.
Our final public comment is from Eric Joyce. And you're on.
Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and esteemed council. I, like many Oceansiders, were shocked when the motion was made to defund Brooks Street in order to pay for a new facility across town. A pool that will charge higher fees and a pool that will serve another community. This pool is not just a pool. The pool is the same as a sidewalk. It's the street lights. The pool is crosswalks. It's after school and community programming. The pool is a basketball court. Tonight we saw the process where you had tons of community input. Basketball courts were included in a plan, and then a group of individuals who are really passionate about a sport, which I got nothing against pickleball, but basketball is something that hasn't been invested in our city. In the last two parks that were built, MLK and Mance Buchanan, don't have basketball courts. Basketball tends to be a sport that's played around the world by people of color, especially dominated in the U.S. And it's important to look at each and every decision and the power that it brings to the people it brings in. Are we going to build a city and put a Disneyland in the middle of our city? It brings tons of people in, but is it serving the community? Is it serving the people of Oceanside? So I'm heartened to hear the recent comments, and I know that there'll be another Brook Street pool, and we're all here. Reach out. We're here to help, and let's build services with our communities in mind. Let's not give in to every attempt to monetize the very heart of Oceanside. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. That's it.
That concludes the public comment.
Thank you. Any final comments by staff? No?
Mayor Sanchez and City Council members, just one clarification that I heard from some of the public speakers when they addressed the master plan of Parks and Recreation and the count for pools. It does call for up to 4 pools once we hit 200,000 in population. Keeping Marshall and Brooks open and the El Corazon facility having 2 pools in that would meet full master plan requirements.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing portion of the part we did not discuss last time. And so I have Deputy Mayor Keim. Going to go ahead and have you.
So I usually wait to make a motion until everyone's spoken, but this is a little more unusual. It's a continuation of the public hearing from last time. We've all discussed this at depth. My feelings haven't changed. When I came in my different positions through the city, I've always thought it's important to increase our activities for kids. I am supportive of staff's recommendations with scenario 4, and I'd like to make a motion to adopt that tonight.
Thank you, and I'll go ahead and second that. And I'd like to make some comments right now too. I was surprised that we began talking about Brook Street Pool, and this is a pool that was built in 1959. That's where I learned how to swim. At the time, Oceanside Unified School District required that you pass a swim class in order to graduate from high school. It was considered then a public safety issue, and I believe it's still a public safety issue. We live by an ocean. You don't learn how to swim in the ocean. It's also a health and safety issue because many of our seniors go there too. And while we probably don't have the data to express it, it probably does reduce 911 calls because we continue to have those kind of resources. It has now become, and that was when I was growing up, there were maybe 30,000 residents of Oceanside, and we had this new pool, 30,000 at the time. And there were ball fields right around it where there was later a Kmart, and that's when the Bledsoes came into action and got the entire city to agree that we should not end parks unless it be by the vote of the people. This is a very, very critical resource. It's an equity issue. It is something that is definitely needed even with the aquatic center. We have been talking about this for many years now. The staff has indicated that there is funding for the Brook Street Pool, along with bringing forward a funding operations scenario for the new aquatic center. That was really the reason why we had this on the agenda for the vote. And I'm asking colleagues here, there is a motion and a second, to support the Brook Street pool as we go forward. I am actually an optimist. I believe that we are going to be doing, right now, we've been hit by COVID, but we are not as bad off as we were afraid of. We are able to do both of these facilities. It is, again, a public safety issue as well as a health and safety issue, and I urge my colleagues to support the motion. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the comments from the public and calling in. What we have before us tonight is oh, I'm so sorry, I always forget to turn that on. Thank you to all the public for calling in and the passion and a lot of history, a lot of emotion, and rightly so. A lot of great testimonies of stories that have, and life experience that have happened at the Brook Street pool. But tonight, there's something on the table above and beyond, you know, what are we gonna do with Brook Street? What are we gonna do with the Aquatic Center? And that's the history of this city and the elected members over the last 2 decades that have ultimately failed the residents of Oceanside due to poor planning, lack of planning, and making decisions that do not take numbers into consideration. Being an elected official, we have to make very, very important policy, legislative decisions, and quasi-judicial decisions that affect the future of our residents. And I wrote a letter after this item was going to come up, because it's important that each and every one of our residents understand how we even got in this predicament in the first place. And so the letter I wrote, I'm going to read it. On October 9th, 2019, a $43.2 million 30-year proposal was brought before the City Council to issue bonds that would cover the cost to build the El Corazon Aquatic Center. I was the only council member that vehemently voted against issuing bonds and moving forward due to poor financial planning that lacked the feasibility of our city to operate a new facility while adequately operating and maintaining the existing pools that we already have, Brook Street and Marshall. Our current mayor and other council members on the council did not share my viewpoint and voted to move forward with bond issuance and construction without a clear picture of how this decision would financially impact our city. The Brook Street pool is a valuable asset to our community. Local residents rely heavily on the pool for recreational purposes, and the Boys and Girls Club of Oceanside has over 500 children utilizing the pool during the summer months. In addition, youth are taught vital water safety skills through a program offered at the facility that could potentially save their lives. Annual operation of the Brook Street pool requires a general fund subsidy of $769,970. Additionally, the facility requires $600,000 in major renovations that the city does not have funding for and requires a closure of up to 6 months to complete. At the February 3rd, 2021 council meeting, city staff finally brought forth an operational plan for the newly constructed aquatic center with annual costs exceeding $1.6 million and a request to cover the unplanned deficits from the city's general fund of $429,000. I refused to support the budgetary appropriations for the aquatic center, and the majority of my colleagues agreed that a better plan with potential cuts to operations of existing pools must be considered in order to move forward with the aquatic center operation. I'm disheartened that El Corazon Aquatic Center continues to be prioritized over Brook Street Pool. Pushing ahead to fund the expensive operations of the aquatic center will inevitably take away from our disenfranchised and marginalized communities that have entrusted city leaders to make responsible financial decisions that equally benefit all communities. We heard a lot of comments today about the past and the present, discussing closing and not closing. But when I meet with residents in Oceanside at parks like Alex Road Skate Park, also known as Prince Park, and you see the lack of infrastructure on one of the most heavily used parks. There is not running water to wash your hands. There's not adequate bathroom facilities. There's not electricity. There's not proper sewage. And you hear all the calls on the El Corazon call of the lack of pickleball courts, the lack of fields, the lack of this city providing the infrastructure that you as residents deserve. But yet we can make a decision that my children will have to pay for the next 30 years to spend over $43.2 million on an aquatic center and not even know how we're going to operate it. And yet now we come forward with an operations plan. It's because of poor decisions like this, decisions that don't take the financial consequences into consideration, but only the emotional, is how we got ourselves in this position. And that's why I cannot, in my conviction, in my heart of hearts, being an elected representative representing the taxpayers of Oceanside, I cannot support option 4. That is irresponsible, and it is not setting an example of what we want for the future of our city. It only mimics the poor policy decisions of the past. I would like to see a more moderate ground, more moderate step taken. A lot of the facilities uses at Brook Street that we all agree is important happen in the summer months. Option 3 entails accommodating those summer months, okay? And it overcuts in half the city's subsidy. I have a question in reference to the loss of the Brook Street Swim Center's revenue. What is that $166,000 coming from? Is that from the school district use primarily? I'm assuming so. I know I'm on the clock, so if you can potentially give a quick answer on that.
It comes from a variety of uses. The surf camps also pay into that about $48,000, and then our Learn to Swim programs have fees to participate in that, and then we do collect staffing fees from the school districts and any other user group. We also have other user groups outside of the school district that do pay rental fees.
Got it. So we made, in my opinion, we made a big financial decision that taxpayers are going to pay. We have a school district and a current board member and a former board member both sat on there, and the former talked about multi-millions of dollars worth of bonds. That included infrastructure, and we have a school district, in my opinion, that has failed to provide adequate facilities for their recreation of their students, period. And now as a city, as taxpayers, we're having to subsidize what the Oceanside Unified School District has failed to provide utilizing their own tax revenue. I don't agree with that. I think that's unacceptable. Now, we're in a position that we are in. Back then, I said, hey, if we're gonna open a new pool and spend all this money, well, maybe we should consider if these other pools that are costing our city a lot of money should be shut down. It has to be discussed in an open setting, and I brought it up. My colleagues didn't want to have that discussion. They moved forward and approved the aquatic center, so here we are, and now we have to be forced to talk about this discussion. I think the responsible thing to do that would meet all needs of our community is option 3. I think we can add in some of those lost revenues, work with the school district. We would save over $400,000 in subsidy there. I also think that there's room to increase non-resident costs. We can add on to the non-resident cost. We can increase that by 20%. I also think there's some ability to reduce some of the staffing for this setup. I think we're giving this aquatic center, we're really giving it the full-on entourage, but I think there's some room for growth, especially if we're going to be going, seasonally on scenario 3. We're going to free up some of the staffing efforts that can kind of merge over through that $400,000 savings, and we're meeting the needs of the community, the memories, the history, the sentimentalness, and we're also opening the aquatic center, and we're making a responsible choice. Option 4 says, I'm gonna do what we always do, and guess what? We're gonna get what we've always gotten, and that's the lack of resources because of the poor financial decisions. So I would like to make an alternative motion to move on scenario 3 that is open seasonally, and we can do this for a year trial period. It doesn't have to be permanently. Maybe the aquatic center makes buco bucks and then we can open it up full time, but we have to be responsible. So I make an alternative motion to go with scenario 3, keeping Brook Street open for all the amazing activities for the Boys and Girls Club, everybody else. I would like to add 20% to the non-resident, charge non-residents 20%. My projections is that would produce an additional 100 grand. And I would like to consider, as a part of the motion, reducing staffing costs of the aquatic center by 20%. And then I can move forward and support this.
Your time is up. Councilmember Weiss. Did you want to speak? No, there's no second.
Yeah, I have been assured by staff that we can afford both the El Corazon Aquatic Center and the scenario 4. I have concerns in that regard. I believe we're spending ourselves into a deficit, and I would hope that if that were the case, the same people who have spoken to us about saving all these programs are willing to talk to us about what they'd like to see reduced if that does occur. But having been assured by staff that we can afford this, I will be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you, Councilmember Weiss. I'd like to add to a few more comments. I don't know how much time I have. I don't think I spoke that much. 6 minutes, okay. I promise not to take that much time. First of all, I do want to acknowledge that Councilmember Weiss, we have been talking about this for many years. Councilmember Weiss was city manager, I believe, at the time when we first started to talk about the aquatic center. When Councilmember Weiss resigned from being our city manager, he was then contracted. So he was a consultant on this project, the aquatic center. And his job was to work on the engineering, to come up with a plan, and also to come up with a funding plan. This is something that we have been talking about for many years. True, we have not, this was something we could never have imagined, COVID, a pandemic, and it's been a year. It's now been almost a year since we've had to do with less businesses open, do with less revenues, to, and have this fear that I see and we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We have been talking about this, and it has been, I believe staff has done a good job, a phenomenal job in listening to the community and addressing a very critical need, and that is we live in Oceanside. We need to be able to have facilities that will address these needs, public safety, health, and also, yes, the need for the children, for the kids who can compete and, in fact, win scholarships. And on top of that, ensure that there will be no drownings in the ocean that we all love so much here in Oceanside. So I want to thank you publicly, Peter, for all the hours and hours you have spent on this project. I know you don't show a whole lot of emotion, but I know that you care a lot about this and also about our city and being able to balance our budget. We never go deficits here in Oceanside. We never spend more than we get. Never. That is actually against state law. We do not run on deficits. And with all due respect, to Councilmember Rodriguez. I've been through all of this, yes, with a passion, but also with very logical facts and ensuring, for me, that we are as fiscally conservative as possible, but ensuring that we meet the needs of our community. So I disagree respectfully that your comments about us not being fiscally responsible in going forward on this project. I'm sure that the same thing would have been said about the senior center when that was being proposed, Mance Buchanan Park when that was being proposed. I mean, there were things that we have done in this community for the last 20 years. Many times we could have said, no, something might happen. We are looking at the potential of getting $31 million for economic recovery. And what we need to do, and what I'm hoping that we will do together, is work towards expanding our economic base, that we do not start trying to identify it as fighting over a smaller and smaller pie, and instead really be creative about what we really need to do here in Oceanside. So with all due respect, and Councilmember Jensen, did you want to make some comments before we do the vote?
Yes, I support being fiscally responsible. I would also, it's not much. I would also support entertaining closures in the off season if we do have a financial deficit down the road. I think that should not be off the table. And I think that our other parks that are being neglected, like the Prince Park, the Alex Road Skate Park, also needs to be taken into consideration. And I just hate to see the Aquatic Center take away from any of the other resources that we have that the community depends on. And that's it.
All right, let's vote.
Motion approved, 401. Rodriguez, no.
Thank you very much. We now have public comments on items not on the agenda.
That is correct. And we have 6 speakers. Our first speaker is Jeff Stanford, to be followed by Joe Hill, to be followed by Barbara Gordon. Jeff, you are on.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Jeff Stanford. I own a home in Oceanside along the San Luis Rey River Trail at about mile 4.8. I note that RVs and vans increasingly park all day long and perhaps all night also on Roymar Road, which runs parallel to Route 76 between Airport and Fusat Roads. Many of these vehicles empty their contents onto the dirt or curb, laying out bikes, tents, sleeping bags, bike parts, and other articles to be displayed all day long. The appearance of these items looks trashy for the entire day, right along one of the main roads in Oceanside. In the last 4 years, parking of these vehicles all day long has increased. They are now displayed every day, all day. There are businesses along these roads, this road, and school buses wait there in the afternoon for their routes. Allowing these vehicles to camp and spread out along this road is a disservice to the businesses there. Parking involving the businesses is just about non-existent along Roymar Road. Allowing this practice to continue in this road or anywhere else in the city is visually disturbing and discourages the patronization of the businesses nearby. Businesses deserve to have a clean and inviting appearance, but it does not exist in this area. It's bad enough that RVs and vans park there all day long, but the placement of their contents on the sidewalks and dirt makes it so much worse. There should be a prohibition of this practice of loitering and visual blight if there is currently not one. Additionally, that stretch of road needs to be available to large delivery vehicles, this being an industrial section. In fact, there's really no place on city land where this should be allowed. Most of these vehicles are owned by homeless, some out of state, judging from the license plates, and thus accrue no tax revenue benefit. Yet tax-paying businesses not only have to view this all day, but common sense says that these businesses are hurt financially by their presence. It won't solve the problem to simply chase the RVs out of this area and disperse them. The city council needs to act to ban all such parking when it creates these eyesores. Oceanside should be better than a campground where junk is left out to dry and air out all day. The city council should go and visit Roymar Road and see for themselves how ugly this looks alongside one of the main roads in and out of town. I ask the city council to pass any legislation needed to prohibit these practices of parking on public land and publicly displaying contents for hours and creating a public eyesore. I thank the council and Madam Mayor for allowing me to speak, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Joe Hill, to be followed by Barbara Gordon, to be followed by Kelly McCormick.
Hello again, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'd like to talk about revenue streams for the city for things like fire and law enforcement compensation, salary levels and hiring, and also money for pools. Last year, when the city married the cannabis industry, if you remember, there were several options that we could have taken to bring much money into our general fund. But the tax rate structure was proposed. It was a suggested tax rate structure, and it was proposed for all cannabis operations in the city that we have currently and going forward, as far as I know. But instead of taking the highest rate, which I believe was 6% or more, and I think because we are a council-managed city, we could have increased it to whatever we wanted. This body reduced the rate to the lowest possible level on the chart, 1% or less. And one of our council members actually wanted to go lower than that. As a city, you could have charged any amount. That's what the cities do when cannabis comes into their area, because they need additional law enforcement and all of the things associated with that business. It's all cash. But instead, we bowed to the wishes of the cannabis PACs and the political donors and did what we could to lower it as much as possible. And can you imagine the hundreds of thousands of dollars that our general fund could probably have, and going forward even more, if we set the tax rate structure at a rate where we'll be able to get a revenue stream for our city? I don't know, Mr. Mullen, maybe you can advise or work with the council on maybe revising what we originally agreed upon. And going forward, we'll have a revenue stream for our city that probably will do as good or better than Measure X. Thank you very much.
It's on his end.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Barbara Gordon, to be followed by Kelly McCormick, to be followed by Ken Layton.
Thank you. Again, my name is Barbara Gordon, and I appreciate all the thoughtful efforts by the City Council to help Oceanside residents. Tonight, I'm asking the City Council to consider the needs for a stricter regulations on potency level of THC concentrate as part of the city's permitting process. Many scientific studies have confirmed high potency THC is connected to serious health issues. In the Journal of American Medicine in 2020 concluded that high potency THC was associated with significant increases in addiction and mental health disorders like depression and anxiety. Data shows that high potency of the marijuana industry's best-selling products increase the risk of addiction, suicide, psychosis, depression, and anxiety. We need to follow the science when making decisions. There is undeniable health harms to high-potency marijuana concentrates. Most of the concentrates now average around 70% THC, and some have THC levels of 99%. THC concentrates have created one of the largest emerging health crises of our time. I urge the City Council to require stricter regulations on potency level of THC concentrates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Kelly McCormick, to be followed by Ken Layton. And Kelly, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Kelly McCormick. I'm the parent of a teenager and a college sophomore, and I also run a youth mentoring and tutoring program. I'm impressed with the passion and support for youth and community activities in Oceanside as demonstrated by the comments that we've seen this evening. And please know that parents like myself are also watching the rollout of the city's marijuana ordinances. Already, we are seeing a troubling pattern. Twice in the last 2 weeks, marijuana applicants have asked the City Planning Commission to grant waivers, allowing them to skirt the rules on distance requirements. And both times their requests have been granted, despite objections that were raised by members of the public. The city devoted a considerable amount of time and resources to developing its regulations, and dismissing them so easily does a disservice to the council members, city staff, and community members who worked hard to put safeguards in place. It's also disrespectful to the residential communities, churches, and other neighbors who are supposed to be protected from having pot businesses next door. Neighbors and parents like myself are concerned about the normalization of marijuana use, odor from pot cultivation and manufacturing, and the traffic and crime risk associated with marijuana distribution and delivery. I respectfully ask that you uphold the regulations as intended by the City Council and ensure that members of the public receive the protections they were promised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Ken Layton, to be followed by Terry Ann Skelly. And Mr. Layton, are you there?
I am here. Thank you very much. Ms. Jensen, you told various media that you would provide proof, I guess, to the media and to the city where your adjacent residence was, that you were living while you were not living at 850 North Pacific. I asked about it, and apparently there was no proof that you provided. Could you please do that soon? And also, since your whole existence seems to be shrouded in mystery, including things like your name and your address, I was wondering if you've ever showed anybody at the City Hall your photo ID. And I was told that, in fact, you have not had to show anybody at City Hall your name, your photo ID. So I am asking you at this time, could you please show the clerk and maybe also the city attorney your photo ID with your name and your address so we can know who you are? Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Terry Ann Skelly. And you need to, all right, you're on.
Hi, good evening. My name is Terry Ann Skelly. I work in Oceanside. I'm also a mother of 3 adult sons. I have appreciated listening to the community members tonight interested in improving Oceanside. My reason for speaking tonight is my concern for secondhand tobacco and marijuana smoke and vapor in public spaces and in multi-unit complexes where it's difficult to escape from secondhand smoke. This is definitely an equity issue, since a large portion of financially challenged families and ethnically diverse individuals live in multi-unit housing, and children disproportionately live in these apartment complexes. These children are suffering from the health impacts of drifting tobacco and marijuana smoke, which precipitate asthma and other respiratory consequences, especially now when the kids are home so much. And of particular concern is that exposure to secondhand marijuana smoke, which produces a detectable secondhand high for victims, a contact high, with detectable levels of tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, as determined in studies utilizing urine screening and blood tests. Children and other non-smokers exposed to marijuana secondhand smoke in a room without ventilation tested positive for THC for up to 3 hours following exposure. Marijuana secondhand high effect is particularly troubling when considering the potential impact to children exposed to marijuana smoke. California Department of Public Health released an advisory that marijuana secondhand smoke is dangerous, containing many of the same cancer-causing chemicals and chemicals as cigarette smoke does. Since data from 2016, 18, and 2020 indicate that marijuana secondhand smoke exposure is on the increase in California, there's never been a better time than now for Oceanside in its quest to improve health inequities to recommend that all multi-unit housing have smoke-free, vape-free, tobacco, and marijuana restrictions in place, as the 65 other cities in California. This number of policies keeps increasing as the research continues to pour in regarding smoking and vaping marijuana. Oceanside could be a leader in reducing health inequities. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the off-agenda items.
Thank you. So on the agenda then, we are to item number 25, which is, it's not numbered. Mayor and our council items. Does anybody wish to make a report? No? Okay, I do have some reports. I'll try to go through them really quickly. First of all, I wanted to thank staff, Deanna, City Manager Deanna Lorson, Kyle Koger, Public Works Director, Carrie Dale, Water Utilities Director, and Lindsay Leahy, Principal Water Engineer, for their comments and their, commitment to the City of Oceanside. We just did the Washington, D.C. trip, which we would have gone to D.C. We used to call it the Tin Cup trip, which, tin cup, begging for money, whatever. This time we were able to do it by Zoom, and the projects that we talked about, the staff talked about, were our large projects, our water projects, the San Luis River flood control project, in trying to see when we can finally have a plan for closure in terms of getting the river back to the City of Oceanside in terms of control. Right now, it's under the control of the Army Corps of Engineers. We still have a lot of work that needs to be done, and it was not seeing any funding last year through many efforts of Congressman Levin. There was a congressional directive that was adopted to raise the amount of money that could go to this project. So very, very excited that we may actually have a plan for terminating that project, at least with respect to this relationship that we have with the Army Corps of Engineers. One idea that came up was the idea of doing it in segments, in phases, that we address certain parts of it with respect to some of the levees and some of the work that needs to be done with that, as well as sediment removal and also clearing. We also talked about the shoreline study. That is a little more difficult because it's not been funded for the last 4 years. So we're looking at, we were trying to get, because there was another congressional directive, that this be completed, with the Army Corps anticipating that would be $1.8 million to complete the study. There are definitions that within the Army Corps that are possibly putting us out of the priority, even though the priority pile, even though there has been direct congressional directive saying this needs to be done, needs to be completed, one and done, let's do this, so that we can finally have a plan to address the starving of our beaches. So that is something that I want to thank staff for really, setting up all these meetings. We had more meetings, I think, than we've had before at the different levels of the Army Corps. Also, we talked about the dredging, and then our wonderful water projects, pure water, Oceanside, as well as our desal project. So the other thing I wanted to announce was that I have been appointed to the San Diego County Air Pollution Control Board to represent District 5, and I'm really excited about this. This is kind of a first time for Oceanside to be part of this very important county board. So the meetings are going to start next month, and again, I'm very, very excited to be able to represent not only City of Oceanside, but all the cities and the areas within the District 5 supervisory district. Another thing to announce, City of Oceanside, in partnership with 360 Clinic, is opening a test center here at the Civic Center, and that is going to start March 4th. Ms. Larson, it's a kiosk. It's going to be open Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is this basically a walk-up situation? You don't have to call ahead of time?
Mayor and council members, correct. It will be a walk-up. It will be a pilot project, and depending on the level of demand, hours could be expanded or in other locations as well.
Thank you, and understand that the turnaround is like 24 hours?
That's what we've been told, yes. They are active in Orange County currently.
And it can possibly turn into a vaccine site. Right. So again, this is very exciting. We have had a mobile unit going around to some of our at-risk neighborhoods for doing COVID testing, but it's not very often, so hopefully this will address that gap in need. The county has another item. The county just announced a new program, an emergency rental assistance program that begins to accept applications March 2nd. This is something, look up with the county, and I forgot how much money has been set aside for that, but all areas in the county are eligible. And then lastly, I want to announce something really, really sad. We all have been touched by COVID in one way or another, and this is true for our city of Oceanside. We've had 2 losses. One, a contract employee, a young man who passed away after having contracting COVID. We also now have a city employee who recently passed away. Someone who was 20 years a city employee, who was an Oceanside High School grad, and also an Oceanside resident, and a person who had family. And I want to say, I wasn't able to contact the family to be able to say her name, but at this point, what I want to say is, our love is with you. Thank you so much for sharing her with us, the city of Oceanside. She's loved here too, and did so much for us. 20 years is a career, and she decided to do it here in Oceanside. For all those who have been touched by COVID, I'd like to, and for those who have lost people in Oceanside, and I know that there were people at Tri-City, we had a high level of deaths going on. That is actually does serve our citizens in Oceanside, Vista, and Carlsbad, and I'm sure others. But I would like to take a moment of silence in love and respect and celebration of those lives. And then, if we can rise, please, for that purpose. Thank you. The next regular scheduled meeting is at 3:30 on Wednesday, March 10th. Meeting